Welcome, everybody. Again, thank you for coming. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Kimmy, you want to lead us?
Sure.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so just about everybody here's been through this before. Very informal. We're on our last budget workshop, hopefully before our Monday meeting where we have to vote to present something to the Board of Finance. I think we'll follow the agenda as closely as we can. The first items on the agenda are right around page D57. Catherine, D57.
Got to print it.
So I'm not going to spend much time on the overview because you guys have all heard it before. We've talked about this budget a couple times. I'm not really actually inclined to go through any of the details except maybe point out a couple of things, and some of this, again, will be repetitive. So the administrative budget, for the most part, we worked hard to keep things flat where we could. We worked to trim things where we could, but you'll see an increase primarily in the regular payroll on D57. And that reflects the priorities that we have been talking about. It reflects bringing the IT in-house and restructuring that so that it includes a salary for the new IT person and some expenses that we're sharing with the Board of Ed on existing salaries. And it also includes taking our HR person from part-time to full-time. That's the most significant difference in the budget. And the rest of the numbers, I think, are pretty straightforward. The other thing I would highlight, I guess, I'll go to D61, is you'll see that we're suggesting in terms of a percentage, a 60% increase. In terms of dollars, not so significant increase in legal services. I'm concerned that might even be a little low in today's day and age. We have a number of issues coming up on that I think we're going to need more general legal services for, and certainly there may be some other one-off cases. So I do recommend that we keep that increase in there. If we don't have to spend it, we won't. We pay the lawyers by the hour, so we only pay for what we use. But anything else, Kimmy, you want to highlight?
You want to go 63, the fringe benefits?
Page 63, yep.
So the fringe benefit, the health plan with stop loss, we put a 19% increase for the health insurance.
Okay, let me pause you there. So we have yet one more call, I think,
Yes.
next week with the insurance consultants, because we'll have one more month's worth of claims to look at. I'm not optimistic that that's going to help us reduce that number at all. The rest of the numbers on that page are relatively flat.
And page 69 for the contingency and reserve. The big increase for the regular payroll is because all 4 unions' contract is still in negotiation. So for the UPSU, Public Work, Dispatcher, IBPO, and GMEA, the increases I put it in the contingency. When we know the percentage, we will allocate it back to the department.
So with respect to both Public Works and the dispatchers, that number actually includes both years?
It's include, yes.
Okay. Okay. I am optimistic that we will get those settled relatively soon. We certainly got the meeting scheduled.
There's no reason that they shouldn't be settled soon from our perspective. We have a template with the dispatchers. We are working in all cases to move the PPO, which was optional, to a mandatory high deductible health plan. The town has accommodated that by buying out the benefit through funding of the either $2,000 or $4,000 self-insurance. We'll work on the language with each union. It shouldn't be a sticking point, but the ability to wrap these up quickly depends on how quickly they're accepted by the union leadership. But dispatchers went very well, and it serves as a template, so I see no real issues on the horizon for the other three.
Okay.
Question, page 69. Miscellaneous, what type of expense shows up there? Or just
What page are you on? I'm sorry.
69?
Oh, sorry.
That's the contingency.
Right, I think Mike's question is miscellaneous expenses under services and supplies. Is, right, that's your question?
Just what type of thing goes there, or it's just contingency?
It's contingency. So in the past,
Pure
it's like
insurance.
vehicle accidents that we have to pay up front.
Okay.
And then we reimburse, so like that line is used for that, or is there any personnel changes? And it's not enough to fund, then we will come out from it. And
Okay.
any emergency repair that is large enough that is not enough to cover by the public work department, it will come from here.
It's pure contingency, there's nothing
Yes, it's not.
dedicated up
Nope.
front? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about the administrative budget? Is, So I'm not sure this is the best time to do it, but let's take a quick look at page 73 and on. Especially page 75. So the Board of Selectmen members will remember, this is something I've asked about a couple of times. I wanted to make sure that we are getting the full benefit out of these various different agencies. They're not huge dollars individually, but in the spirit of looking at everything that we're doing. So I think we have asked each one of these entities to come and make presentations to us and remind us what the services are. And I think virtually all of them have or will, with maybe the possible exception of the Hartford Transit, but I schedule a meeting with our representative there and we talk through it. I'm comfortable we're getting the value that we need here, but I do think that we can leverage up. We've been leaving some stuff on the table just because of my time constraints. So once Mike gets in and gets more organized, and I know Betsy's taken over some of the responsibilities of being our liaison to these agencies, and you can see there's very little increases in them. So I just wanted to highlight that we did ask about these, we did look into them, and I think they're worth keeping on, at least for now.
Mark, in the interest of time, I certainly don't want to go into a long explanation, but is everybody comfortable with what CCM does? They're our legislative arm, what COST does and what CROG does? CROG in particular is important because they're our conduit to federal monies. So your reimbursements from the bridges probably had a lot to do with CROG's work on that particular thing. So while 8,000 and 1175 and 10,969 are big numbers, in the scheme of things, their ability to help us leverage federal transportation money, in particular CROG, is extremely important. So happy to go into more details on another time, but I don't know the groundwork covered up to now, and I just want to make that comment.
No, I appreciate that. CROG made a specific recommendation. We've been asking these agencies to come to the Board of Selectmen and make presentations to us. So CROG did a good job of explaining to us that federal conduit. So, all right. Did you have anything, Brad?
Nope, all set.
Does anybody have anything all the way up and through finance management? Is there any, Catherine, I can't tell who's on Zoom.
We got Jenny Amber.
Okay. All right. If there are no questions, we'll move on to finance management. And what page is that on, Kim?
81. So in finance department, we have three full-time employee. And because we're non-union, so I budget the increase in the budget, and then 2 of them actually in the middle of the step. That's why you will see a 4.77% because of the step and the GWI increase. And the part-time is for our treasurer stipend for a year. If you go under the service and supplies line, there's no increase in there. I kept it flat. For the audit, there's an increase for the audit fee, $4,050 for the CFA fee increase. And the rest is for the gas fee report increase. And I also put it in the annual report, a slight increase in there. This year, we make 750 copies for the annual report. We pay almost 2,500 of it. If we ever consider to increase that volumes, I put it a little bit more just in case we need more. For the budget printing, we are doing this big book. I call this small book, all in-house now. It's a shorter turnaround time, and it actually has some cost saving in it than to outsource it. There's a slight increase in there. It's just because due to the supplies increase, the paper, the copiers. And the biggest increase is in the software applications. The software application, there's 3 components to it. The first one is the iVisions. I put in a 5% increase. The second one is the Sage software that is account for all the fixed assets for the whole town. I put in a 5% increase on that one. And the biggest one is the time attendance software system that we just start using it. And one big portion of it is that we move the PD, time attendance system, into my department because they're all one vendor now. So you will see a decrease in the PD budget for that line, and then a significant increase on mine, plus the potential increase. And another component is when you have 2 software try to work together, they both want a fee. So there's additional fee from our current system, iVisions, in order to feed the information from the VCS into the iVisions, and that fee is about $535 a year. So it's included in that number. And I will open for any questions.
Mark, I just want to make a comment, if I may.
Of course.
So under the audit, $63,250, that is required by Connecticut general statutes. Again, I apologize if I'm covering ground that you already know. It's done annually. It's submitted to the State Department, the Office of Policy and Management, and there's 169 towns in Connecticut. All the audits are laid out side by side in a comprehensive database called the Municipal Fiscal Indicators. So one, I want to compliment Kimmy. She has one of the earliest audits done in terms of her books being available for the audits so that the auditors can come in and give her a clean bill of health for the work that she's done. So kudos to Kimmy. I think you know probably better than I how valuable she's been, or invaluable to the town during that time. But in the Coming Drummer article, I took some of the statistics out of the municipal fiscal indicators, and I publish them in a, hello, I'm Mike Walsh, to the community. And I think if you read that, you understand the machinations and the granularity of this budget. What I did was I took essentially your audit, which is the results of the budget, and I compared them across 169 towns. So I'm simply connecting the dots between the audit, the work Kimmy does, and then how we compare, which you'll see in the drummer when it comes out. I found it an interesting analytical exercise, and maybe the community will too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I will also give credit to Mike Gorko and Kimmy that, I don't know if you guys remember last year, but the auditors, even though we were under contract at one price, raised the price, and it would have been higher than this if Mike and Kimmy hadn't worked with them to try to get it down. It's one of those costs that go up and we have very little control over because there's very few qualified auditors who are willing to do it. And they know it, and so they kind of set the price that they want to be paid. All right, any other questions on finance management? If not, we will move to the town clerk operations, which I think start on D64.
D64.
Welcome, Scott.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to present the town clerk's budget. We're starting on D64. The town clerk's office is a bustling hub of municipal government. It is staffed by myself and 2 part-time assistant town clerks. Our office is, in a lot of cases, the pass-through through so many different things that touch a lot of the other various offices around Town Hall. Many of our residents throughout the year stop by the town clerk's office, whether they're coming in to license a dog, file a property deed, or doing something with vital records. We're your place to go. Some of the things the town clerk's office is responsible for is providing access to all of our public records, recording, indexing, and preserving the land records, which would be all of your property deeds, mortgages, the land records, filing and maintaining the maps and the surveys, liquor permits, issuing dog licensing, keeping all of the DD 214s for our veterans, and then maintaining all of the boards and commissions, meeting agendas and minutes. Not only am I serving as town clerk, but I also serve as the Register of Vital Statistics, meaning that I'm responsible for issuing birth, marriage, and death records, along with cremation and disinterment permits on behalf of the town. I also have a hand in helping facilitate the election. I know our Register of Voters are up next, and they'll speak a little bit more about that. But my role in that is to help prepare for the election as far as organizing, ordering and preparing ballots, making sure we have supplies, administering oaths to elected officials when appropriate. I just wanted to highlight some of the state agencies that we interact with and we serve as liaison to. Would be the Department of Agriculture, the Secretary of State's office, the Department of Public Health, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, the Department of Revenue Services, the Department of Veteran Affairs, and the Department of Aging and Disability Services. A couple of quick things I just wanted to go ahead and touch on my budget. Overall, it's a very minor increase. You'll notice with the town clerk's budget I'm presenting this year, there are a couple of line item adjustments, which is mostly a reorganization of the current budget. There were some items that I felt that were generally historically maybe coming from the office supply line that were really more for recording of land records, in which case I moved them to indexing and recording. So just going down the list, you'll notice the election supplies, that is down a little bit. What I've done is I've taken a good hard look at all of the election supplies we currently have and what I think we need. some election supplies would include some of the absentee ballot envelopes and labels and things of that nature. There's a little bit of a best guess to it of what I think the percentage turnout will be and what I think we need to order. So there is a little bit of reduction there. The office supplies, like I was saying, there were a couple items that historically had always come from office supplies that I felt should be moved to better capture what the actual cost was associated with that specific event, whether it was the election or recording land records. For example, one of the things coming from office supplies was we use wax document stamps that go on the land records. Those were coming from the office supply line. I had moved those to indexing and microfilming. The other thing you might notice is the postage line is up quite a bit. This is my guess on absentee ballots. With the presidential election just around the corner and an August primary, I'm anticipating a higher turnout in absentee ballot requests. They're 87 cents to mail out per ballot. I'm just kind of guessing, give and take, on what to expect. That being said, the other thing I wanted to touch upon is mapping. So you'll notice in the budget is we're looking to 100% eliminate the mapping line. This is due to the support of the ARPA request, the plotter that we purchased. So historically what the clerk's office would have done as maps had come in, they would have been sent out to a vendor, a local vendor, to be scanned and copied, and we would have gotten those items back. Now, because of the new printer, plotter, scanner that we have, we are doing that entirely in-house. To date, we're back to 1976 with our maps because of the purchase of the plotter, and we've scanned some 2,700 maps since we purchased it. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I have just a comment. I want to thank Scott and make sure that everybody else knows that you guys probably know Sue Altieri's out on medical leave, and so kind of a busy time of year to have a lease, and when I asked if everybody would help, Scott and his team jumped right in and helping do anything that they can do that doesn't require, specialized training. So I want to thank you for your willingness to do that. You guys done a great job. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. I wish we could nitpick a budget that's only up 0.2%, and I'm not sure how we're going to do it. Go ahead, Mike. You look at me like you have a question.
One comment on Scott. In addition to his town clerk duties, he wears the hat of the town hall union official. And my interactions with him have been stellar in the 9 days I've been here. He's cooperative, he's helpful, he's a problem solver, and I have all confidence that the union negotiations will go that way too.
Wow, that's
Oh, boy.
that's recorded, public hearing.
No pressure, Scott.
They're meeting on the 28th.
All righty.
They'll let me out.
Last question.
Okay. Anything else on the town clerk operations?
Yes, if you please. On behalf of Laura Wolf and myself as registrars of voters, frankly, we'd like to thank Scott for all the work.
Let me pause you.
Okay.
Not that he's going to get his thank
My
you,
two pennies in.
but just come up. You're next
You
anyway,
guys are
so
next
come up
anyway.
so the microphone can hear you guys. You guys want to come up or you can hear?
Nope, they say no. That's all right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, Scott's been
No, I just-
absolutely terrific.
Mark's gotten better at it, but he's usually it's get him next to the mic, get him next to the mic. So now that you're next to the mic,
Mike,
would you start again?
If I can, I'm Paul Willis, Registrar of Voters with Laura Wolf, my counterpart, and we work as a team. But we want to thank Scott specifically for the work that he has done with us, because without him, we couldn't operate effectively.
It is mutual. We are a good team.
We
We're
are.
a good team, and nobody keeps better records than Scott. There will never be a question on any election of the results, because this guy will not let us leave till every ballot has been accounted for.
We'll find it.
We will find it, absolutely. All right, Paul,
Are we ready?
Can we pass these out?
Yes, please.
All right, pass that around.
Thank you.
So
Catherine, we're going to be moving to D70.
Right.
we have pretty graphics for you from the Secretary of State. We would not spend this kind of money on four colors. But the big story from our department is early voting is here. It's a challenge, and it's going to cost us money, so that's where we're at. If you want, we can read our little presentation.
Or we can just give you highlights.
Or, yeah, we could just do highlights.
You know, there's just two of us, and we're composed of two part-time registrars. Both Stephanie and Sandy are here with us tonight. Thank you for supporting us. And we have, as our duties are described in the budget book, the scope of accomplishing all of these, all of this has drastically increased over the years. The new required certification program for the registrars costs roughly $4,000 a year, which is extraordinary. Early voting will greatly affect our budget going forward, and that's something that you need to know. And we've given you the graphics here of early voting for 4 days, the 7 days in the primaries, and then 14 days later for the election. So I just want you to be aware of that. But thus far, we've received a $10,500 in early voting grant, which we're earmarking for training and equipment replacement costs. And finally, democracy is alive and well in Granby. We won the Democracy Cup in 2018 and for the highest participation in a mid-sized town, and we have an amazing volunteer staff upon whom we rely. And they come out for every voting event to ensure everyone has an excellent experience when they come to vote. And we believe, frankly, that we are the only town in the state who is blessed with a mostly volunteer staff at the polls. So just want to let you know, set the guidelines for all of us.
So it has been suggested a few times, why aren't you paying your poll workers? We would have to triple our budget to do that, because we have a full staff at every election, every event, and they're wonderful people, and they do a terrific job, and managing them has been a little of a challenge, but we would rather do the job right than not do it. So
That's right.
there you go. Anybody have any questions on any specific point in our budget? We're going to have a new voter registry coming out June 30th, July 1st, so more training and classes. The secretary is still working on early voting, so it's a work in progress, but we're supposed to have new equipment.
If you have any questions, you know where we live, in the small closet across the way.
I just would have asked about the promised replacement equipment for our current voting machine.
Ah, yes.
Have you heard anything from the legislature on funding for that?
The 25 million bonding has already passed, but I guess once you get bonds, I don't know how the state works exactly, but even though they have $25 million, they can't spend it without doing lots of hoops. I don't know, it's the state. So they did get $25 million, and they're supposed to be moving forward, but
We
the
haven't
state
heard-
moves slowly.
They do.
And
Mike, explain how the state works.
I reached in 30 seconds.
I reached for my phone to understand where that was. So the Office of Policy and Management puts the bonding into place. So let's presume that they have put the $25 million into place because we knew that the optical scanners were at the end of their useful lives and they wanted to move to a new technology. So the governor then controls the bonding agenda, so OPM generally has his ear and would add the 25 million. I do not know, because I have not seen the bonding agenda in some months, whether or not it got on the bonding agenda.
We were told it did. I don't
Okay.
know if that's accurate, but we were told.
So then
She's
it
got that.
returns to the Secretary of State for allocation and spending. It's probably going to be passed to each municipality based on their needs, and that's probably the holdup. So I believe the funding, if I had to guess, the funding is in place. It went from OPM as a request to the governor as an approval to the bond agenda, which he controls. The 25 million is sitting somewhere, and it's trying to be allocated to each of the towns. And I just don't see it being in place to allow the towns to purchase it and have the technology in place by November. That's just my
We agree.
off-the-cuff hunch, but as I said, I was reaching for my phone. I only have 30 seconds according to Mark, so that's my story, I'm sticking to it.
No, that was a good summation.
You were at 42 and I stopped paying attention at 30, so. No, I appreciate that, thank you. But before we go, again, I have a comment and a thank yous just for a couple of things. First of all, thank you and the teams you guys lead. It is not an exaggeration that we could not do it without the volunteers. And I know sometimes it sounds like a broken record and that people, we become white noise when we say it. So as you guys are out there in our community saying it, when we talk about how we couldn't do what we do in Granby without everybody working together, including our volunteers, this is about as good as example as you can have. We have the safest, calmest, friendliest elections that I've ever been involved in, and we pay almost nothing for it. It's done by people who are doing nothing but volunteering their time because they care about our community and they care about protecting people's right to vote. And so I'm very grateful for what you guys are doing. I'm also grateful for you guys being willing and the teams being willing to extend the voting hours on the referendum this year. I know you didn't want to do that, but
They did
again,
not
remind
want that.
people, we're going to open the polls at 8.
Yep.
We're going to run 8 to 8 instead of noon to 8, what they usually have been. So hopefully that, anecdotally, I had heard from folks that it was tough sometimes for them to get here in the afternoons and evenings. And so hopefully that we're providing another opportunity for people to get out and vote. So anybody have any questions?
Just how's your recruiting going and getting volunteers? Is it
We're
still
doing
going
quite
strong?
well.
Okay.
It was interesting, the drummer was spectacular in placing our request, where you could see it, like on page 3. And we got more people to respond, brand new poll workers, as well as a whole bunch coming back. So for the early voting, we're all set. We're still working on the primary.
Right.
So anybody watching this, come on down, let us know. Because we try to fit everybody in that we can, regardless of, what their ability is. We like to have everybody help, so.
Well, that's great.
All right, any other questions? If
Oh,
not-
I was supposed to mention,
Yes.
we had the high school registration Wednesday.
We did.
That was only yesterday. 80 students registered to vote, so that's a very high number. It's not a record. We did 110 one year.
That's right.
But it's a smaller class size, so percentage-wise, that was really excellent. And of those kids, 29 of them are eligible to vote in the budget, so we encourage them to show up for that. And it was a very good day.
Did I tell you guys my crazy idea that ought to be a graduation requirement, that you have to register to vote
I
before you can
100% agree.
graduate?
I
Why are you
100%
laughing?
agree.
All right, well, that was my crazy idea. Shoot it down.
It's a basic civics lesson. Learn what's involved.
That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, we're not going to track whether you actually voted, but you have to register to vote if you're eligible to get your certificate.
Oh, we do track that.
Yeah, all right. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you for hearing us out.
Good work.
Most grateful.
All right, next on the agenda is revenue collections. I saw, there comes Laura. I think it's D76. D76. Ready when you are, Laura.
Okay, so it's not very much new in this budget, just the basics. Most of everything we do is statutory. We have to send bills, we have to send delinquent notices. We have office supplies. So there's not a lot of change in my budget. I will point out that our part-time staffing figures are still extremely low. That's something we are just going to have to address at some point in the future. We're kind of like the lowest staffed tax office in the Farmington Valley and well beyond, and it's starting to take its toll. But this is what we have right now. So office supplies are fine. I will note that postage and envelopes and bills, while they are an increase, that's also something that's kind of not controllable for us. It has to do with how many bills we're going to have and what the cost of postage is. I think that the figures that we have in here that are proposed are, if anything, a little low, but we'll go for it. And I don't really have much else to say unless you have questions for me.
Anybody have any questions?
Okay.
Same thank you to you. You and your team were also stepped up immediately when we needed some help with Sue being out. I'm very, very grateful for that.
Always willing to help each other out. Okay, thank you.
All right. I may have to do the property assessment now. So property assessment is on D78 and 79. I feel comfortable doing it because it's, for the most part, flat. There's an increase in part-time to cover some holes if we have them. And there's some increase in postage, but we've just heard about postage twice. Kimmy, help me on the software application. Is that?
So one of the software previously was put under mapping. So now we try to kind of clean up the line items. So we put all the software in one line as a software application. She has QDS, CAMA, and MLS, and all under the software applications. So we were just switching the line items.
So that's why in the first line you see a 94% decrease, and then the third a 140% increase. It's just a shifting of it. Thank you. I forgot about that. Mark, did you have a question?
Yeah, on the software packages, was this one of the packages that was upgraded, or sorry, updated with the ARPA money?
These are all existing software. The building permit, I think they try to figure out a way to talk to each other with the QDS system. Not sure what's the status of it, but I think it's still work in progress. But this is existing software that she's already using. It's not from the ARPA fund.
You remind me, because I was going to ask about the communication with the building permits and how we intended to have that happen. I didn't know if this software was capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Previously.
I didn't hear your question, Mark, so.
When we upgraded the assessor software at one point, there was supposed to be an add-on that would allow it to talk to the building department so it could pick up the information on building permits.
Yep.
And then seamlessly bring it over. And I didn't know whether or not that had happened.
No, it hasn't happened, and I never use the word seamlessly, but So I think it is a work in progress that, Mike, you're going to have to sort of pick up on. So we did spend ARPA money to upgrade the system on the permitting side. And I think Abby gave us an update on that when we had Abby in here just the other night, that they're beginning to roll that out and work out the kinks there. And they have been working slowly towards a system where that will feed directly into our assessment system, but they have not figured it out yet. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
We were trying to save them printing out a piece of paper at one end of the aisle, and walking it down the
Yeah.
aisle, and then re-entering the information.
Those two software packages are not currently interfacing.
There are just some background, they're two separate companies. So the tax office uses Quality Data Systems. They're out of Waterbury, or they were, I don't know if they're out of Waterbury now. And several years ago, probably 8 or 10, they bought Vision software. Vision software is basically where your inventory of real estate and the analytical data for each property is held. Quality bought Vision, they brought it under the same shop, but they're two separate programs, so even Quality struggles to create interfaces. So what Granby's facing isn't unusual, and it's important, even if it's a manual basis, that those things that the building official are seeing move into the Vision system so that when we produce a bill, it's reflective of the actual value. Connecticut runs on what they call an ad valorem system, Latin for added value. So if you add a deck, you get a little bit of a bump in your taxes, or at least your valuation. And then finally, things like multiple listing. The assessors use that as almost a surveillance tool, and I certainly use surveillance in a positive way, not a negative way. When you sell your house, you generally disclose everything in it, and we're often surprised by the things that we find on MLS that we didn't know based on the property card. Revaluation does reset every 5 years, and we try to catch that when we send out the property data cards, but a lot of people won't return the cards, or they won't let us in their property. And it's certainly a voluntary function, but as a matter of fairness, the more everyone can participate, the more accurate the data is.
This is something also that we might have made more progress if we hadn't also been transitioning through different IT consultants, right? So it's probably something to put on John's team's list, because I don't think it's on their list.
Yep.
I think Abby is trying in her spare time to do the work, and so getting the IT folks involved might get us closer to where we're trying to get. All right. Any other questions on property assessment? If not, then I think we will move to, let's do the revenue and other funds first, and then finish up with the capital plan. I'm hopeful we can get through the other revenue funds without too much trouble. I think they're on F167.
Revenue?
I could be wrong. That happens all the time. F167?
Other funds?
Yeah. Did I miss something?
No, we just go with this one first.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on? Well, let's go through them quickly one at a time. We'll just go in order. So the dog fund. No questions, we'll move on. And next is the park and rec funds. Now, I know we discussed this a little bit the other night. Does anybody, do you have anything additionally you want to add?
Nothing additional.
Good. That's a very acceptable answer. Does anybody here have any questions? I think we got an explanation of the revenue changes there the other night. All right. If not, we'll move on to the sewer fund. Well, actually, it's the sewer utility fund. Any questions?
I'll ask one. On the sewer use rate, are we going to evaluate our current plan? We do it annually when we make sure that we're billing the right amount, but our sewer use against the sewer study?
Yes, very good question, Mark. So with the current plan, because both of our normal April Board of Selectmen meetings, we are having to cancel because of the referendum vote. So April 1st, we'll be over at Town Hall presenting the budget High School Auditorium presenting the budget to the voters. So we'll cancel the April 1st meeting. We're going to cancel the April 15th meeting because the voting will be taking place in this room. And the current plan is to schedule a Board of Selectmen meeting on April 22nd. Whatever work that we have to do for the Board of Selectmen, and then when we adjourn, we're going to go into our role as the Sewer Commission, and there'll be at least 2 items on that agenda. The first is to review the sewer study that we commissioned. It's complete, but to present it to us, and the engineer who prepared it will be here to help answer any questions that folks have. And the second item will be to do the annual action to set the rates related to that. So we're anticipating doing that on April 22nd.
Mark,
Yep.
revenue page C49, you have the use of sewer utility fund. But I don't see it reflected.
What page are you on,
Here.
Mark? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the payroll regular, 175,
Down
That's-
there.
the
Okay,
18,431, that's the 5% and the 10%.
okay. That's the piece. Okay, thank you.
Mark, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. These are part of the pages we changed, right?
Yeah.
We're going to skip any of the capital funding just yet because we'll do that all at once. So F-180 would be the solid waste fund. Kimmy, on page F-181, can you remind me what the use of the fund balance is for?
Oh, it's just the expense is more than the revenue that's going to kick in, so we just need to use the fund balance to balance it.
Got it. Everybody hear that? Okay. All right, and then last thing I'll mention here before we get in, if there are no other questions, if you go to page F-183, this is new this year in the budget, to create a special fund for the Emergency Communications Project. The idea is to help us manage those revenues and costs. We'll talk about the details of that in just a minute when we get to the capital budget. But Any questions on the revenue and other funds? Did I miss one? What?
Yeah, that's the other one.
Going once? Twice? Okay, we'll move then to the capital budget. We distributed, Kimmy distributed before the meeting the revised pages. There've been some changes. Let me take a second and try to set up the discussion before we get too deep in the weeds here. So remember, we developed this list a little bit differently than we have in the past. So we asked for everything everybody thought they would need in the next 10 years. We kind of guessed at some of the stuff of what year to put it in. The primary focus in the first year was the emergency communication system, which Chief Orr is going to give us a detailed presentation on here in a minute. Remember we discussed that capital plan at our last Board of Selectmen meeting, or one of the last Board of Selectmen meetings, so we kind of vetted questions and answered it. Based on those discussions, Kimmy and I went back and made a few minor changes. We did some of the stuff we talked about, which is, there were a couple items we pulled off that you shouldn't see on here anymore that we moved into large cap. The one I remember off the top of my head was the library addition project. There were a few smaller items that we took off and put on a must-fund list, but the rest we tried to leave on so that they were kind of stayed in one place. I have since had conversations with Mike Walsh about how should we proceed here next to getting something complete that we can put in front of the Board of Finance, to put in front of the voters, and had a shorter conversation with Mike Warco. And the way I would like to try to approach this, if you all agree with the goal, is to start with everything that was new in the first year. We're just going to look at the first year here, okay? So everything that was new in the first year, with the exception of the radio communication system, moved to the second year. And then take everything that is normal and just set it back to the same level that it was last year, so that we are truly focusing the first year on the radio communication system. It doesn't mean that we can't fund those other things. It just saves us a bunch of unnecessary work that I don't think we could complete between now and when the folks have to vote on the budget, because there are multiple sources of funds we could use. We've talked about this. There's ARPA, there are other funds that we have in control that we might use for all or some of these projects, or some portion of these projects. The schools, one of their biggest needs is to upgrade the security system. That project is not fully defined in a way that we could address it in the first year anyway. And so the idea is get the radio and communications be the focus, keep that in the first year, everything else move to the second year, get through this, and then put the team together, Kimmy and Mike and the superintendent, get their list, because they don't have in one place yet, unless I'm misspeaking, the work we've done. They don't have one list yet. They have a couple. Get their list, put the two lists together, and then start vetting them. So, does anybody object to that being our approach tonight? So to repeat, nothing new except radio communication in the first year. Everything that's new in the first year will get moved to the second year. Everything that's a normal, regular allocation will remain flat for both us and the school board. Around the table, everybody's good with that?
Yep.
Mark?
I'll ask a question on that.
Yes, sir.
So when you say everything remains flat for the upcoming year, does that mean everything that was planned last year to happen this year is going to be the same, or are we looking to keep the dollar value in different categories the same?
The second.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we agree that that's a good approach, then Chief, you want to come up and walk us through the emergency communication plan, since that's going to be our focus? So, Yes, she does, excellent.
Yep, she's got it, and you can hand those out to everyone here, so they don't have to turn around.
Sorry, I'm sorry, did you give me the whole pile, or did I take the whole pile?
Betsy said to hand it to you.
It's always Martha.
Just do your job.
Marco volunteers.
I don't know.
Okay, so this is the financial part of the radio communication system. I will go back through a little history and background of the project, bring you up to speed where we are today, and then we can start talking about some of the details of the system. So stop me at any time we have any questions. We'll go from there. So the first slide that we're showing here now, just the list of the committee members, with Mike coming on board. He's been added to it. Mark filled in during the time period where we didn't have a town manager. The rest of the team, also Chief of Police has changed with Scott coming on board, been a great add to the team. Everyone else has been the same, so good continuity, and we're right at the point where we're ready to pull the trigger. Next slide. So this is a summary of where we are. So what's in black was done before and presented at the July meeting. What's in red is what's been done since the July meeting. So the reds are the changes. The one adjustment here is number 5. The communications number, the 4.2, is incorrect. It's 4.5. And then I'll show the details of that later in the deck. So what have we finished? We finished the bid specification and sent that out to the bidders. We actually had a bid conference. We have 5 potential bidders come to the conference, tour all the facilities, review all of the information and data that we had from our consultant, and toured all of these sites, both existing and proposed, so they understood what we were after. So when they provided feedback and their bids, they aligned. We've got our bids back. We've evaluated those, and the committee is recommending Marcus Communications. We now need the funding to go forward, and again, we'll talk more about the details of that in the later slides. And once we get the funding approved, kick the project off, then it'll be a monitoring and review of the progress of the project. Recognize this is a 2-year project, is what the current schedule shows, from the time we sign a contract with Marcus. So any questions on the top level where we are? Great, next slide, please. So current systems assessment, again, this was done back in 21 and 22. Bottom line, we have to replace everything. We've got equipment, probably 10, 15 years and older is our entire infrastructure. When we did the bidders conference and we had the 5 companies come on site, they were all shaking their heads the same way. They were kind of amazed we were still operational. With the age of the equipment, a lot of it is not public safety certified. A lot of facilities, we've got one of our facilities has a tarp over the roof to keep the rain out, as an example. So the assessment that was previously done was validated, and those are just some of the key words. We have the assessment. If someone would like to read or review the details of it, I'd be glad to share that. So we have to replace our systems. Next slide, please. So what are the goals for the new system? So when we went into this, we tried to set ourselves up to be as successful as possible and to come up with an effective system. First was lowest total cost of ownership. So that means not just acquisition cost, but also operational cost. We wanted to make sure we had a system overall that would be low. So for example, you have towers. We'll have multiple towers. You'll see that later here. We've developed a tower structure that allows us to use point-to-point communications between each tower, radio communications. What that does is eliminates fiber optic runs between the towers. Fiber optic is very expensive. It's $100,000 a mile. So that would have been an additional cost on top of what we have here. Instead, we're putting in a radio point-to-point system that the towers communicate with, eliminates having to run fiber. Also, is a little more reliable than fiber. Fiber is still susceptible if some car takes out a telephone pole, breaks the line, breaks the fiber, and then that drives you into a fail-safe situation. So total cost both recurring and non-recurring. Coverage. The coverage, especially for the police department and the fire department, 95% availability with a portable on your hip at ground level. So that means, you know, a police officer running through the woods chasing someone, or just out at an accident walking around, they're on a portable. 95% of town needs to be where they can reach with a portable. Today, we're less than 50% probably where the portable works. For the fire department, we're probably less than 20%. Our portables generally do not reach back to the tower here except if we're within a few miles. So for us, it's a day and night difference in support. We also want to need to provide growth and compatibility with the surrounding towns and services. Fire department need to communicate with all the surrounding towns we mutual aid with, who come into our towns, go out of our towns, multiple frequencies, different bands. We need to be compatible with that. Ambulance, same thing. Police department, same thing. DPW, same thing. They actually do work with other towns, so they need, you know, their radios need to communicate with the other towns when they go there and vice versa. Also, we want an infrastructure communication system that is compatible with the federal agencies, state agencies. This system does that. So everything that you're seeing that I'm talking about here, this proposal does this. We want a smooth transition from the old system to the new system. We're going to run the old system until the new system is up and running, tested, verified, and then we'll switch over. That has some challenges. You could get some failures with the old system at any time. Also, we can't move old system equipment because if we start messing with the old system, better chance it'll break. So there's some challenges there. Marcus has a plan to deal with that. And this covers all 5 services for the organization, Town of Granby, Fire Department, Police Department, Ambulance, DPW, and the CERT team. So we included everything. Questions? Next slide. So Marcus Communications is who we have chosen. They are not new to the business. They've been at it a long time, 50 years in the business, over 300 clients. Their proposal meets our requirements, and again, it's a 2-year project. They've done projects, for example, nearby Simsbury. They've done a project for a couple other towns around us. They gave us a list, and we validated with those sites. They were very happy with their service. Next. So the proposal for Marcus is that we're going to have a 5-tower site system. So site number 1 is Gavitt Road in Barkhamsted. If you run down 219 into Barkhamsted, that's Gavitt Road. And you look to the right, you'll see the tower sticking up there. That tower fills in the hole in West Granby and the areas that we have trouble with today. Site number 2 is Meadow Lane. It's really Upper Meadow Lane. That's the top of Route 20 here in town. And both those sites, 1 and 2, are commercial sites. They already exist, they're already operational, and we've already inquired to our ability to get access to those sites, and the answer is we can, but you got to tell us details. And until we have the final design, we can't give them that. But they were available. Site number 2, Upper Meadow, we have free and clear access. There's a clause in the contract for the site that says emergency services has free and clear access to the tower, so no rental fees or anything like that. Site number 1, Gavitt Road, we don't have that clause except the town of Barkhamsted does. So we're going to have a chat with Barkhamsted to see if maybe they can help us get over there for a limited to no recurring fees. So we'll see how that goes. Site number 3 is Mountain Road. That's an existing ham radio site, pretty much defunct, but it's still there. That site, the plan there is that it's a private site, so the plan there is we will buy the property from the owner. We already have a purchase agreement already signed and completed. That was done last year. We'll buy the site, tear down all the old equipment, improve the site, and build a new tower. And that's included in this price. This price includes everything I'm talking about. Site number 4 is the Metacomet site. That is from the airport, Connecticut Air Authority. You got the 3 red lights here on the ridge in East Granby. The southernmost red light, that's the one that we're on. We already have an agreement with the state of Connecticut. We had done that in 21. Free and clear access. Sorry, it wasn't free. We paid them $1. Again, we have to go through design approvals for the equipment and the details. but we have an agreement with them, we're in good shape, ready to access that. And then site number 5 is the tower behind us here. And between that and the PD, basically we'll have to add some antennas to the PD building. That gives us our system. Why these sites? These sites see each other. There's a line of sight in every one of these to at least one, if not more, sites. That gives us the point-to-point communication capability and eliminates the fiber optic cost. So that's why they were chosen. It wasn't chosen because we felt like it. It wasn't chosen for any other reason other than they see each other. We can set up the point-to-point communication. They were also chosen for the coverage that they provide for the services. And we'll show that in the next slide. But before I do that, any questions on the towers? Okay. So the next slide is the current coverage. What's in orange is what a police officer can expect. He or she should be able to communicate with a portable on their hip back to the base. What's in white, they're not. This coverage map was validated. This is what we're seeing today. As you can see, big chunks of the west side of town, southwest side of town are out. And the reason is we have a tower site here. This is one tower site, and then we have another tower. There's 2 towers in the current PD system. The other tower is up in East Hartland, but it doesn't give us awesome coverage. The fallback we've been using for years is a mobile gets us improved coverage, but there are still dead spots, even with a mobile. Next page shows what the new system coverage will be. And this is portable coverage. So basically, other than the few white spots, and this is assumed summertime, full foliage bloom, but leaves, believe it or not, leaves and such drive performance on the system. So this is all designed to meet that with those conditions. So the bottom line is a mobile will talk anywhere in town, no problem. Here, roughly, it's 95%, 94 point and change. This also will allow better communication inside of buildings, and we have a specific set of buildings that we need to have good communication in. That's a requirement in the document we sent out. And when we get into testing, there will be solutions that we'll have to work with, like, for example, the schools, Middlebrook with Granby, et cetera. Right now, we can't communicate out of those buildings. The PD cannot communicate out of those buildings to the base, unless they're near a window. So this is the PD expected coverage. And you can see there, it puts the gray spots. Those are where the 4 major towers are. The town hall one, of course, is here. And again, the fact that we have orange outside of the town says we have the ability to communicate on our system outside of our borders. The radio waves don't just stop at the border. They propagate a bit. So this helps us if we're doing mutual aid or coverage. Sometimes we go to Heartland. The PD goes to Heartland, East Granby, Simsbury. We can communicate on our own system. Plus, the new system will allow them to switch on the same radio switch and communicate to those services in their town when we respond there.
Thank you for pointing that out. I would not have thought of that unless you pointed that out.
So that's the PD coverage expected on the new system. Any questions on that? Okay, next one. So this is the ambulance coverage. Again, current coverage, tower site located at Metacomet Ridge, where we're planning on being there. We're going to put all of us up there. Again, portable coverage, it's poor. Mobile is better, and I don't have the mobile map, but it's better. But again, we don't get the good coverage that we need, especially with the ambulance. They may be inside working on a patient, and they may decide they need more help. Right now, they have to run out to the ambulance in some cases to make that call and then run back inside. Now, a lot of times in town, the PD's with them, so they're helping. But again, they're working off a portable in those cases. The rest of communication is primarily mobile, but there are times when the portable's needed. Go to the next slide. This is what the new coverage will look like on portable. Again, much better coverage, especially you see it filled in significantly in East Heartland, also in East Granby, which is also their coverage area as well for the medical side. It fills it in. This is all included in the price that we're asking for approval for to get this coverage. Questions on the ambulance? Next one is the fire department. This is what we can expect. We didn't even bother running a current model because it's a day, it would be mostly white. Because we just can't do it today. The fire department's changing, going from a low band frequency to a VHF frequency. It's just day and night difference. We have to get off low band because we can't buy any more equipment. The last new purchase was in 2015, 2012 was the last new piece of equipment we could buy. After that, everything's been eBay and the rest. So we have to get off. We've already pulled the license for this frequency, so we have it. And then this is the coverage for a portable. So between adding our mobiles and our trucks, we get excellent coverage and we'll get a marked improvement in coverage inside of probably most of the buildings in town. The reason you see a difference between this coverage and say the PD coverage is because this is VHF versus UHF. The frequencies, they work a little differently. Electromagnetic physics work a little differently. VHF carries and propagates a little better than UHF does. The hard part is trying to get new frequencies in UHF. It's very, very hard. So that's why we went with VHF for the fire department. Also, 90% of our mutual aid members are all on VHF. So they're on the same channel, same frequency range. So marked improvement, day and night difference. Next. So what's in the offer? What's in the number? So complete new tower layout. So we're putting up all those, a lot of those towers already exist. There's only one we have to, if you would, install, which is the one on Mountain Road. The rest of them already exist. We're just going to bolt onto them. It also includes the cost to purchase that site, which is already covered by an agreement we've already signed with the owners. Again, really appreciate the help from the town and the owners in working with us on that. All new equipment, every mobile, every portable, every radio base and generators, all brand new. There's backup generators for all the tower sites and all that have to go in. It includes a new dispatch center. Console, the furniture, the layout. We're replacing a system that was put in when this PD was built in 2000. Currently, parts of the system don't work anymore. And if you want to go through the details, I can tell you that because I work as a part-time dispatcher and it's getting frustrating because things are breaking and we can't fix it. We can't get the parts. We're still operational, but it's getting tough. All backup and monitoring systems. So the new system with all the backup systems, it's not battery backup, we're using a newer technology, but then they hold over until the generators start. But there's also remote monitoring systems, so we can, us or the service provider, which will be Marcus, can log into the system remotely and see what's going on. Is there a problem? Is something not running? Is the generator failed to start? Whatever it is. The system is quite talkative. In some cases, too talkative depending on who you are and what you're working. The good news is we have it, the monitor. We don't have it today. The only way we know the fire department radio doesn't work, push the button and nobody hears anything. And then the only way the dispatcher knows that if somebody calls and says, are you trying to call us for something? Because there's no failover mechanism that says the tower's not working. This system will know if anything's working or not working, probably before it even fails. If it's starting to have problems, we'll know. Number 5, all the removal and disposal of all the old equipment in the tower. So the tower up on Mountain Road will be removed. So this includes all the removal, all the disposal, all the old radio equipment. As you know, it's electronics, has to be disposed of properly. This is included in all that. All the monitoring of the system and the repair of the systems. This proposal has a 3-year warranty. It's included in the price, in the purchase price. We then have warranty / service costs for years 4 through 7, and they're included in the pricing you'll see in a minute. What's excluded from that is if a tower gets hit by lightning, that's excluded. We have to pay them for those repairs and the equipment that goes on. In my 44 years here, we've probably had 8 or 9 times that towers have been hit with lightning and had to have some level of repairs. It does happen. But these will all also be emergency services qualified systems, proper grounding, antenna grounding, things that our current systems don't have. So we would think it would be less likely this would happen. But there's protection systems built into this. This also includes having a Town of Granby project manager. We've solicited proposals from multiple vendors. We ended up with 2, one of them Federal Engineering. They're the ones helping us evaluate the Marcus bid. They're going to help us negotiate the final pricing and contract with Marcus. If we like working with them, we can choose them to do project management. So we have a price in here to hire them for the 2 years to manage this thing. Clerk of the works, just like in any other major construction project. The town of Granby doesn't have anybody that can do this. So we could hire them, and if we don't like them, we can go hire someone else. There's money in here for that. All the frequency adds and changes with the FCC, all that license submittal, all that paperwork, that's all included in this, up to a point. If we have a lot of trouble, we have to do a lot of submittals, there may be some over and above costs with that. We'll have to see. But there are some assumptions about being able to do a few submittals, get things through. So that's included. All the power backup talked about. Communications interoperability among all Granby and surrounding towns and services, that's included. So now we have the leadership of all the major services. All the leaders will have radios that can communicate to any other service. So just like dispatch does, all the leaders will have that. Chiefs, the captain, chief for the PD, chiefs for the ambulance, the CERT team, the emergency services manager will all be able to communicate on any channel in Granby. And then they all can communicate with their mutual aid services. Installation labor, parts, software cost, it's all included. I already talked about the warranty. There's also a UTV vehicle included in this. The Metacomet Ridge is a difficult tower access. So to make sure if we have to get up there in an emergency, there's a UTV included, which is both wheeled and tracked. The fire department will train and run it. We will also use it to help with our extrications from people. We're getting a lot more extrications for people like hiking, walking. Plus, not included in this, but something the fire department will purchase is a brush fire module. So for brush fires to take this out, we've got plans, funds separate from this to do that. But we need the base UTV and trailer to do this, but we have the equipment to do it. We've already had a committee. We've already gone through 10 or 12 proposals, and we've got one selected, so we're ready to pull the trigger on that. The other part of this is contingency funds. This is a huge project. Marcus has done a few of these. Federal Engineering has been involved in several of these. They all recommend some level of contingency. There's things in here. We do a tower analysis for Metacomet Ridge, let's say. Maybe that tower is actually overloaded and we can't do what we want to do. So we may have to go do something else. Good news with that is the airport's offered the other tower as an option. There's nobody on it. But it's a longer run. We have to run more power. There could be additional cost if we went there, as an example. We won't know until the actual design work is done. So the design work all is included in here, and as long as we can overcome the issues, we're covered. But if we can't, we may need more contingency funds. And we'll discuss that. I'll show you what the estimates are in the next slide. So any questions about what's included before we get to the punchline?
Software description. Is that initial software? Is that regular maintenance on the software?
Yes. All of the above. It's buying it, it's maintaining it, it's all included.
For the same 7-year period?
For the 3-year period through the warranty period, and then the warranty cost that you'll see included for any licensing beyond that.
Thank you.
What's the useful life? Do you have a sense of what that would be on the equipment? I mean, I know it's going to vary by piece of equipment, but is it like a 7-year and you're going to have to start replacing things, or
so
how do we plan for that?
We've been told, not just by Marcus, but Federal and others we've talked with, radio equipment, portables, mobiles, we can expect somewhere between a 10 and 15-year life out of this equipment.
That's what I never expected.
Now, mind you, we're used to having 20, 25-year lives. You know, we've been really living on borrowed time here. We've been very lucky with all the systems we have. We have equipment that's old. It's that old now. I have a mobile that's 33 years old. It's in our rescue. That truck goes, that's what we talk on. We will not get equipment that will last that long anymore. Harris, Motorola, Viking, they all say the same thing. Nobody makes equipment that'll last. And it's primarily because of the software. They get all the revisions and such. It gets to a point where they're computers. You're carrying a portable, it's actually a computer in it, plus everything else that has to go with it. So useful life on the equipment is somewhere between 10 and 15 years. That's something we're going to have to start working in once we get the system up and running. We're going to have to start planning more appropriately. We're not going to be able to install something and wait for it to fail later. We're going to have to plan this a lot better. The good news is all the portables are compatible, all the batteries, so I can take my battery on my fire radio with this system, give it to the chief on his PD radio and swap it done. So it gives us a common pool of portables, of the batteries, you know, the microphones, all that. Today, I have portables that he can't hook up to, or batteries, and vice versa. This makes it consistent for all of us, so it gives us a little more buying power in the future. So we can buy a, package deal for the next replacement, and we don't have to do it all at once. I think we could come up with a
plan to kind of
a planned migration over time. Yep.
And Chief, will you remind me, so that this bid includes at least a couple of extra portable units, right? Or does it give us a little bit of an inventory?
So we went through the updated numbers. So every portable that every service wanted is included in this price. So no service should have to spend any extra money unless they want to add a portable beyond what they asked for.
But like, just by way of example, the number you asked for, does it include a couple that are sitting at the station that
No.
that are backups if something goes
No,
wrong?
and here's the reason. So my number for the fire department, every officer gets a portable. Every truck has a portable in it. So that's 8 or 7 trucks. So I've got, about the numbers here in my head. So I got 6 officers that need portables, because the other 4 officers already have them. We paid some money already, so we already have 4. So I got 6 there, 7 in the trucks, plus 31 for every interior qualified firefighter. So you do the math, whatever that is, 40-something portables, that's included in this bid and part of this price. If I have somebody coming in from out of town because of the frequency we chose, they can program it in their radio when they come in, so I don't need to give them a radio. But if I do, I have a spare one in every truck.
Right, okay.
And if later on it was a problem and I wanted to go buy some more, then that would be on the fire department to go buy extras if we want it, but we have a model that works. The PD has one for every officer, and we also bought extras to make sure, because we have to cover the schools. So we bought portables to replace the ones at the schools, and I think he had 2 extras? He had 2 or 3 extra in his number. So each service went through their analysis and said, this is how many I need. And that's all included in this price.
This may be way too deep in the weeds. If it is, let's not do it tonight, but maybe just to educate me. So your volunteers, they're at their house. Is the portable with them, or when they get on a call, do they got to go to the station and pick up the portable and then respond?
So in the current system, only the officers have portables.
Right.
Nobody else does. So right away, I'm giving them a portable. It's an improvement right off the bat. And this also includes for the fire department a pager. So we're going to new pagers. I've got pagers that are 1989 vintage that we're still using. We're getting all new pagers. So the pager will alert the firefighter to wake up, whatever, and go. They'll have the portable with them
At their house?
at their house on their gear. Because the concept here for the fire department is if all the line of duty death reviews, et cetera, communications has always been a gap. So, and what happens is firefighters get separated. So you got a pair, always going with a pair, but they get separated. Well, one has a radio, one doesn't. So the recommendation here is to solve that. Everybody has a portable. Now, under our old system, we couldn't do that, because if I keyed up my radio and she had hers next to me, feedback would screech horrible. It would shut off the system. You couldn't use it. The new system doesn't do that. So this allows us, if they get separated, they can still hit, there's a Mayday button on the radio, hits it, takes over the frequency, alerts the Mayday, gives us a code number, we know exactly who it is, so we have to identify a mobile portable to a firefighter. So that's our structure. And that's all included in this.
Right, and then just repeat, because I think I walked out of the room when you were having this discussion. So the latest round of changes we made to the bid include the units the school district needs to be on the same system?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, we had missed those 4 portables for the 4 schools, but that's included in this. And there'll be compatible on the PD system and do exactly like they do today. They talk on the PD system. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. Who owns the system? Is it the town owns the system and you borrow it from the town, or how will that work? Like, who owns all of the different devices and stuff like that?
I would envision that belongs to the town. The town people, I mean, let me stick to the fire department for a minute. If I were to go insolvent for the fire department, our agreement says all the equipment that the fire department has goes back to the town. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm using town equipment all the time from the fire department perspective. PD for
Is the
sure.
ambulance the same way?
Hmm?
The ambulance the same way?
No.
That's a point we're gonna have to work on. It's okay.
My impression, I'm Chris Gordon from the ambulance.
Chris, come up here so you near the microphone, please.
Sure.
Chief, bring up, perfect timing, bring up a chair, please.
That's what I do. So,
bring up a chair, Chief.
I did the radio part of it. I'm not on the board at the ambulance, but the radios would absolutely belong to the town in terms of, possession. If the ambulance were to, like John said, go out of business, they would, the town would pay the vendor to remove them from the vehicles. Portables would just be handed back in. I mean, certainly if we expect the town to purchase and maintain the radios, I don't see how it would be fair that the ownership would.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. That's kind of what I was assuming, but I just wanted to clarify it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
So never would have thought differently.
Okay, thanks.
We're just about to get to the slide where you have to explain the $4.5 million cost. So again, your time is wonderful.
I got you.
Mike, go ahead.
State police system. What's the, I know you looked at it.
State system.
Yeah.
Yes.
How's it fit, not fit?
Can I take that?
Give it a shot.
I'm practicing for my public speech.
I know, that's why I said give it a shot. Let's see how you do.
I want you to correct me where I'm wrong. So when we did the bids, the bidders were required to look at hooking onto the state system. I think they kind of did that to a certain extent, but in the additional research and the work we've done, the bottom line answer is this. To hook onto the state system would be significantly more expensive, both up front, because it needs at least one and probably two more towers that we have to build from scratch. And then the ongoing costs are probably higher for us because you're maintaining two more towers, and because when you're on the state system, you have to upgrade when they tell you to upgrade, which we may not necessarily need, but you have to do it. So what we have insisted on, and I think what we have verified though, is that the equipment, the radios they're carrying, are state system compatible. So if it ever made sense that the state system got to a point where we got because the other issue is the coverage, we can't achieve the same coverage here. If they ever got to that point and it made sense, we didn't waste a bunch of money on the equipment. It's state compatible,
Right.
but it's not state system because it's substantially more money to do the state system. Did I get that right?
Very good.
Thank you.
So the replacement tower up on Knock Road, that's the only quote-unquote new tower or upgraded tower. The rest exists now.
Correct. Yeah, and that tower, we could pull the numbers, I think it's like 500,000 or 600,000 to do that tower completely, just take it down, clean it, rebuild it. And put all the equipment in it, generator, all that. It's all broken out in the proposal from Marcus.
A couple of years ago, we were talking too about using the tower up in Heartland or.
Yep.
But that's not in this mix. Don't need it. You've got sufficient.
Can't use it.
Can't
use it, and the reason is if you imagine that mountain, right, the Mountain Road tower we're looking is here. Those other towers are up further and back. We lose visibility to the other towers in the network. That's why, quite honestly, it was just by pure luck because when they were doing the design, they were struggling to get something that worked point to point. So we pointed out this ham site, when they did that, between that and the Metacomet Ridge, boom, the whole system came together. Granby has a very difficult topology. These mountains or hills we have, the state and Motorola both said that. I had meetings with them because they're trying to design the state system to fit. They were up to adding 2 towers, and mind you, those towers without site prep are $1 million a piece, roughly. And they still weren't getting 95% coverage. And they all said, geez, Granby, you guys are tough. When you look at the state system used by other departments, they're in areas where either the state already was in, like a lot of them are like down on the shore, well, relatively flat down there. One tower can cover 2 or 3 towns. It's pretty easy. Up here, only Bloomfield PD went, and they're on the state system. Well, the tower was put right in their backyard, and they're relatively flat. They got a couple of hills, but apparently they got improvement with it. And their bill for just the PD was 1.9.
Yeah, it was over 2. That was a few years ago.
And that was just the PD only, radios only. It wasn't any of the other services. It wasn't anything with dispatch center. It wasn't any of this other stuff. It was just that. So it's really a matter, some towns have cashed in with the state system. It's worked out well for them. All in. I mean, it doesn't look like but we're compatible. So if, for example, there are some potentials that other parts of the state, for example, may switch from an older channel to the state system, we can add that to our radios where we need to. Mind you, the cost of the radio goes up. Adds anywhere between $800 to $1,400 a radio addition. So a full radio to talk all this stuff is, $6,000. A portable one. So having the state system interface is, if you don't need it, we're better off cost-wise, but if we have to, we can do it. Right now, this foresees the ability that if we need to get on it, we can, and we've got it for one service, it might be a good fit, so that's included in this price, and that's in here. And then if there are going to be anything else, some of these other changes like regional access frequency system, which is a PD tool, hotline, which is a PD tool, if they're talking about going to maybe use the state system, because these are statewide systems, I would hope, and then I'll lean on the chief here for that one, that if they're going to say that they would get funding for everybody to go on it, not just a few towns.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. It's been going on for a while. They want us on the state system, but they yet don't have the capacity to have that. So they're trying to look at one-off projects to guide us to say, build your foundation, so at some point, if we do go, you don't have to strip things back as much. We'll have to strip things back a little bit, but it's going to minimize costs. We don't want to build something from the ground up that is not compatible. So what we're doing, at least our foundation will be compatible. And also, too, it's going to help us out if we can get some type of state funding. I was at a conference today. East Windsor's going through the same stuff. They're at about a $4 million bill as well. They're looking for state bonding and other things, but same thing, very confusing depending on who you talk to about the state system. So we would love to see one master plan and to have everyone kind of, but I'm surprised progress CCM or some others haven't been really, doesn't want to talk about it. So I think a lot of communities our size are saying, okay, we'll build a platform so we can always jump on. It's going to be a lot less cost. But I think our portables will probably be wearing out by the time that happens. But our core system, the platform will be there, and that's the expensive part. The portables are actually probably the cheapest part of the entire platform. I mean, a tower's a little over $1 million.
Tri-band portables are expensive.
Yeah. Well, you're looking at $4,000 probably roughly for a portable, but you're looking at over $1 million for one tower.
At the state level, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, punchline.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'll just run down top to bottom. it's a 2-year project, so consultant project management fee. So this is hiring the project management, so $90,000 total split evenly for over the 2 years. The contingency amount is an estimate, $132,500 spread over the 2 years. Dispatch area modifications, this is tearing out the existing dispatch center down to studs and redoing, new furniture, et cetera. We're still getting bids on that. Kirk from the DPW director has been very helpful in trying to help us get modifications there. So that's just an estimate. So we're still waiting on that. The Marcus proposal is the exact number bid. We had an update today because with the last few days, we had an all-day review with Marcus last Tuesday. Went through the entire proposal, one end to the other, every service, every item, including federal engineering. Our consultant had gone through the whole proposal, asking a bunch of questions. We ended up having to update. There were some misses in terms of quantities of radios, generator we need or didn't need. All that's been netted out, so this is now the updated number. And again, just evenly split over the 2 years. There'll be some timing in there. Purchase of the Mountain Road property, it's estimated, that's based on our estimate, it's 3 acres of need, and as per the purchase agreement we already have that's been signed and processed. The next items are warranty costs. You can see years 4 through 7, those are already bid, already part of the proposal. We don't have to pay those now, obviously, because we have warranty out for the first 3 years. So assuming the system comes online in 25, so you got 26, 27, 28, and then you got to start adding beyond that, 29. So I'm probably off a year, but we'll fix that.
Chief, can I stop you there for a second?
Yes.
I'm sorry that I didn't notice this sooner. Why did those numbers go up and down? Like, why is the 4th year warranty higher than the 5th year? And then they
I don't have an exact answer for you, Mark. I can assume that some equipment, so they're leaning on the warranty of the manufacturer, so maybe some come due sooner versus later, or maybe they're putting a risk model to say, yeah, we know this might fail, but this stuff will last longer. Those are details we would have to ask Marcus to go through. We hadn't focused on that in the review because they were in the out years, but those are definitely parts we can do during the final negotiation. We should negotiate all of this right up front when we do the purchase agreement with Marcus, because that's when we have our leverage.
Okay.
So good question, and we'll work and figure that out. Mountain Road Tower site prep. So this is an estimate with some backing from Kirk Severance from the Director of DPW. So this is basically taking down or putting a road in, which doesn't exist today, taking down the existing site, bulldozing it, taking down all the trees, removing the stumps, doing rough grading, and installing required power. The power up there now is on telephone poles, ancient installation. All that would have to be redone and done underground. So that's what the $400,000 for the site prep is for Mountain Road. It's the only site that needs it. All the other sites are existing. That's why it's only for the Mountain Road site. The next line item is generator maintenance. This is an estimate. We haven't bid a maintenance company yet for the generator maintenance. So we'll have generator maintenance basically at all the tower sites. The only true exception will be the one here. This tower here, we already have a generator. It's at the senior center. That tower uses that generator. So we're already under whatever maintenance contract we already have with that. So this is an estimate. I think it's very high. This is them going up to there, changing the oil, filters, checking it out, doing a system check once a year kind of thing. Although, again, Metacomet, tougher area to get to, so that would probably be a little more expensive. And the FD and Communications Access UTV, that's $85,000. It's a solid bid on that. We're ready to pull the trigger. So you see the grand total, and I blocked out the 2 years are 4.5, which includes that $265K of contingency. And again, there's a lot of unknowns, and until we do designs and stuff, we're not going to know, and that's why the contingency may seem a little high. We still have some price negotiation to do. We'll see how successful we are. With straight pricing changes, there could be some configuration changes, radio frequencies and stuff could drive hopefully reductions in the program, but that remains to be seen. We have to go through those discussions with them. So there are some, we got some good bids, solid bids on a lot of this. We still have some outstanding bids and some estimates that are in here. Then was also asked to make sure that we're clear that there's some alternate funding options. So as I understand it, we have the funding in the funds in the general fund, and the vote request is to move those to a special fund to start the project. But there are options potentially with bonding and some others that we might be able to get to, so those could be done after the fact. The key is we need to start. Our system is broken down, so we need to start. If we get an approval to get this funding in after the April 15th meeting, we could have a contract signed as early as May, and then we'd be rocking and rolling from there. And remember, it's 2 years from there for us to complete.
Any questions?
Again, I'd like to thank Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. Everyone's been very supportive over the last few years of this project to get us to where we are now. I've been saying this a lot lately. We're closer than we've ever been. We need a positive vote from the townspeople to accept the proposal. We believe this is a cost-effective proposal. We believe it offers us the lowest cost of ownership, and it gives us the best performance that we're going to get, and it'll be hands and fist performance over what we're seeing today. Marcus is a good company. They have a lot of respect. Federal Engineering, our consultant, respects them, speaks highly of them, and they will help us make sure that we get everything we're supposed to get out of this. And I believe Marcus will stand behind their product as well. They've been very straightforward with us right from the beginning. A lot of detail, massive spreadsheets. It's all in there. We think we've got it covered. Questions?
Yes. I'll start off. When we have the estimate at 4.2 million, I think that came after the initial bid proposal and the bids that came in. What changed between the 4.2 to make it 4.5?
So a couple things changed. One, the Marcus proposal was adjusted because of the quantities and such weren't correct. We took a bunch of things out, but we added stuff. So we ended up, net add, it went up. The Marcus bid went up $124,000 from the original bid because of those changes. And those are driven by us, the town, and our services. So there's a $124K increase on the Marcus bid for that reason. The other changes are things like the tower site prep, some of this other stuff. We had put some numbers down around that, but we hadn't solidified some of those. So those are added in. And then the rest really is contingency. Right? Originally, we were recommended to put in more like a 10% contingent amount. The original 4.2 only had $100,000. So we're taking the middle road here somewhere at 265. So that's the other piece of it. So probably your biggest swingers right now are the higher contingency and the increase that we did with Marcus because we changed the quantities, adjusted based on the discussion. So that ate up almost $300K right there. So actually, yeah, that'll get you from the 4.2 to the 4.5.
And because of the scope of this project and the complexity of it, so here we have like a radio dispatch system with construction and things of that nature. Then you have the radio system itself. Then you have building towers, and then with building towers, we're also putting a road in. So it's the complexity of that hasn't helped us any as well. And in the course of time that has gone on to build a project with this scope.
So thanks for the explanation on the extra 300,000. But I think that, as the chief indicated, a complex project like this, are you sure you have enough built into your contingency so that we're not coming back again to the voters?
As we've discussed with them, Marcus, we don't know what we don't know. So they've provided, based on their experience, that we need contingency, and they were recommending, 10% number. Federal Engineering was recommending at least an 8% number based on their experience. Both of these companies, actual experience, hundreds of years of experience doing these projects. They all recognize that there's some risk here, and so let's have, if everything works well, then we don't spend that money. But that's why they were selling. So we went up to 265 is what I have here. I would be very okay if you wanted to add another 100 grand and make it 365 contingency. The goal is not to spend that money, but if we have to, because something goes, then what's the process by which we go get that funding? I leave that really up to the town folks to decide and how you want to present this to the town. If you added another 100 grand to a 365 and make this a 4.6 project, then we're now in the range of what our consultant said we probably should be at, just in case. And mind you, it's just in case money. I will come back to the board if we need it. I'll tell you that right now. I will come back to the board
Yeah,
if we need it.
I'm just
but-
thinking it's easier if we get it approved up front and don't use it versus figuring out how to get another 200,000 or, whatever, in the event you need the contingency. Because my experience is 10%, with big projects, 10% is generally a reasonable number.
And this is an unusual project, right? I mean,
Right.
We know how to do bridges, roads, we've got a lot of experience, we know what works there. We, the town, don't know, so we're relying on those expertise. That's why we hired them. The other thing we can do is make sure we put good governance around this, that if we think we have to tap into this, we could still do a review and approval review with the Board of Selectmen or whatever organization you feel is necessary before we spend it. I think that would be very fair and proper to do so that we have at least well, we need it and here's why, and we go show what happened.
I guess my next question would go to our current town manager or our former interim or acting town manager. The financing on this, are we looking at one package for the 4.2 million? Or are we looking at the money split over 2 years, the first 2 years when we intend to spend it? Since we're not going to bonding, where we'd have to do all up front,
Right.
do we split it into two, funding-wise, 2 one-year projects, based on the estimates?
So again, I'm going to try this and see if I have it right, but then the experts can correct me if I'm wrong. I think our wisdom was to put the entire, whether we do 4.2 or 4.5 or 4.6, in the first year for the voters, because it's the worst case scenario, and then we know we have the money to issue a contract. We will not spend it in the first year. We probably won't fund it in the first year. The question to the voters will be, I think, twofold. It's all part of the same budget question. It's one question. But if they approve it, they're approving both the creation of a special fund to manage this and the use of up to 4.6 million from the general fund. But it doesn't have to be transferred in the first year, right?
Right.
So, did that answer your question, Mark?
It did, but you kicked off another one while you were giving your fine explanation. So yes, it's all up front so that we can sign the contract and we know we'll have funding in place. You mentioned this as a separate vote, so this is a question mark. Is this included in the yes or no budget vote, or is it yes or no budget plus a vote for the emergency radio fund?
It's one question is what we are currently contemplating. One budget question, if you approve the budget, you're approving everything in the budget, including the creation of the account and the funding of it from general fund up to 4.6 million. It's all one budget question. That's currently what we're contemplating.
May I add some context as well?
Of course.
So in order to sign a contract, you need an appropriation. This question does two things. It allows you to spend the money, sign on the dotted line, because the full faith and credit of the, and again, I don't want to confuse anybody by credit, but basically it is backed by the fund balance of the town. So that allows you to sign the credit, or sign the contract. The payment, the cash flow, is a completely different thing. We can work on that, we can negotiate that. It could be several payments, it could be based on certain milestones.
It will be. It will be. Something this large has to have milestone payments on based on certain conditions, et cetera. So it has to be.
So let me wander just a little bit to give you some compare and contrast as you think about what number to put in front of the voters. Either way, whether you do 4.5 or 4.6, it's coming through this board. It's either coming through as 4.5 and then another 100,000 down the road, if he needs it, is coming back to this board. You have that ability by charter to transfer that money from fund balance. Kimmy and I worked on this, and I believe the number's up to 600,000. It's 1.5% of taxation. So in any way, shape, or form, all roads lead through the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. Let's take again, I don't want to confuse the matter, but I just want to compare and contrast. Let's talk about a bond initiative. You did bridges and you did some Board of Education stuff. You're asking the voters two things in those cases. You're asking them for an appropriation to do certain work, and then you're asking them for the ability to bond to pay for the work. So don't confuse an appropriation with a bond with cash flow. That's the third thing. We only borrow it as we need it. Some of these projects go out multiple years and you issue multiple bonds. So think of the radio program, the radio project, as a bond, but we're never going to use the bond because we have the money already in a cash account. So again, you're looking for an appropriation, you're looking for a funding source, and then Kimmy and I will watch for the cash flow based on the milestones in the contract. Last but not least, to kind of put it all into context, on page 146, some excellent language that I just ran into today that everyone should be remembered. A capital equipment fund was established in 1985 and was put in place to help the town deal with equipment purchases in an orderly fashion. This fund has worked well in leveling off the need for equipment financing. The entire capital improvement program now runs out of a capital equipment improvement fund. A contribution from the town budget is made in each year and is transferred to the fund. Here's what's essentially happening. And again, let's not talk about the radio program now. You have a variety of different sources of funding. Sometimes you lease funds, sometimes you bond funds, sometimes you use cash in the bank, sometimes it's a transfer from the general fund. It may be a transfer from the private duty fund. But think of those as cups of water that you're dumping into another fund. And the reason you do it that way is, one, governmental accounting is based on fund accounting. You do it that way because the general fund only lives for 12 months. And you couldn't possibly get all your capital projects neatly done in that 12 months. So by making the contribution from the general fund to the capital fund can live forever until the project's done. So the budget is transferred for a capital item, is transferred from the general fund to the capital fund, and then a variety of funding sources that you've designated helps to retire each individual project. So this will live off of the general fund once you make your motions, and Kimmy and I will manage it with the chief. Again, we need the appropriation to sign the contract to begin the project. The project budget will whatever, 4.5 or 4.6, depending on what this board is, will be set up, and we will monitor that against the milestones, and we will fund it only as we need the cash. But again, if you choose 4.6, it's less likely we'll be back. If you choose 4.5, we will be back. It's really a perception issue. Would you rather return money at 4.6 or have us ask for a little more money at 4.5? It's perspective.
Is the thought that the fund would kind of live in perpetuity to, pay for additional equipment or to pay for the maintenance fee, things like that?
So I would like to answer yes, and I want to kind of paint the picture that we're now talking about three different funds. You're talking about a bond fund for the bridges and the other things that I've introduced just to, compare and contrast. That fund lives until all dollars are expended or all work is done. Usually it's all work is done, because if we need more money, we come and get it. And then if there's extra money, we close it out and we pay down debt. So that's how bond funds are closed, when the projects are done and sufficient money is either needed to close it or paid back. The capital improvement fund exists forever and ever and ever. And you basically remove projects as they're fully completed, add new projects in, add new funding sources. The beauty of taking it off book is if, for instance, the bridges were in there, not in a bond fund, but the bridges were funded a different way, when you had excess, you could transfer that. Kimmy and I could come back to the board and say, we've identified this capital project, it's done, we have a $20,000 surplus. You go to the Board of Selectmen, you go to the Board of Finance, you reprogram it where you need it. So that's the importance of living out of the general fund. Back to the radio project. This is now a limited life project. It will probably exist for 2 years. However, if you want it to exist forever, it can. Once the bulk of the work is done, I would probably recommend, after we talk to Kimmy, let's close that project out and let's move the maintenance back to the general fund as an allocation to the Lost Acres Fire Department. You could do it either way, though. You could let the fund exist, but it's gonna, it's only gonna be a single line item. Why transfer it just to pay it? Close the fund out, move it back into the general fund. Again, it comes before the Board of Selectmen, comes before the Board of Finance. It's a matter of preference. Both are appropriate accounting techniques.
Are there any other questions on the chief's presentation?
Just wanted to say thanks to the chief for, I know how many years I've heard about this project needing to be done, and you quarterbacking it for that amount of time. How long do you think we've been in need of updating this?
So I started asking for help different ways in 2015. Okay. So I've been 9 years trying to get this through one way or another. The fire department's had a need since before that, and we were kind of just doing our own thing, trying to figure it out and get through it. And, we're just not recovering enough money to do it on our own. And quite honestly, and that was actually a finding from the Marcus evaluation, they think we should do a better job of coordinating our services, having a little better governance and how we work together, et cetera, because then they think that will also help with some of their maintenance and such, going forward. So rather than having 4 or 5 organizations doing their own thing, we should work closer together. That way we can manage those costs better, leverage this buying power better. And we're already doing that a lot already. Fuel farm, for example, is a bird. I think we're all using the same fuel farm now. And we're getting the best possible price because we're all using the fuel farm. I used to have my own fuel farm. Get rid of it, right? Liability and the cost. And it gave me a better price. So those are things that we need to do as we go forward.
So then we're going to transition to selling this to the public, and I think the pictures are worth the 4.2 million, or pictures worth $1,000. So if we can circulate some of that in the drummer about here's our system now, and we can recognize that some of that stuff is circa 1990. Right. So that might be a good thing too.
So we have the committee's drafted up. So we have a drummer article that we're ready to pull the trigger on. We also have a social media article with some detail. The drum article has a lot more. And then I do have to make some corrections to this and with what the final decision was on the numbers. And then I'll make the updated version for this, and we can make this available to the public as well.
One last question about whether we go forward with adding a little bit to contingency. The dispatch console, so you get the 50,000 kind of in there. In the 4.5 million, there's the money for the new equipment that's going to be
absolutely. Oh, yeah. And the console itself.
That's what I meant.
So what Marcus is covering in that, if you bring that number up, please, to the spreadsheet, please, my presentation. So what's in the Marcus number for dispatch is replacing all the equipment, all the radios, the console, the furniture, the rug. They're paying for all of that. We have to pay for some modifications. There's a big window we want to close off. That's in there. Will give us more wall space to work. We have to we want to put new cabinets in there. There's a little kitchen area that's the original. Basically upgrading all of that so we have a latest and greatest. If you want to go look at the Canton Police Department, just finished upgrading their dispatch center. They put exactly the same furniture that Marcus offered in ours. Our dispatchers went there and went, we're good. Okay. The new desk and tables that rise, so you can stand instead of just sitting the whole time. Headsets, everything's all monitored, driven, no more buttons and all that. So, but if you look at the can, they posted on their social media site, et cetera. So you can see what they're offering. We're looking to do the same thing here. But that's where there's some things we have to do, and that's the area modifications. You know, we gotta tear some of the walls out, do some of the cabinetry, plumbing, electrical changes, things like that in concert with Marcus and work with that.
Okay, great, thanks.
Any other questions on the presentation?
I would just like to ask, I would recommend the 4.6.
Hold on.
Are you opening up the time for the public who's going to vote? Can I just ask a few questions?
What do we care what the public thinks? No. Come on. Come up, you gotta get near the mic. Or you get, or just take a chair. Come just take a chair. We want to, we just want people at home and who are gonna watch this later to be able
I'm
to.
going to announce who I am.
Please.
Kurt Johnson, Fielding Woods Road, West Granby. I just want to preface by saying, my wife and I have been in town for 34 years, and I know there's people in this room that have been here longer, but I think over the 34 years, it's come up, I know once, to upgrade the system, and perhaps twice. And I am all in on this. This is the time we need it as a town. The obsolescence, it's concerning, so I'm all in on it. And as far as contingency as a taxpayer, I would plug in 9%, only because I'd rather have it be enough, going back to your point, instead of keep coming back to the well for more money. So if we're going to do it, I say we do it right and build in that contingency. A couple of questions I do have are, if a tower goes down, whether it's lightning or whatever, or two, how long would it take to get the towers back up in service?
So that's conditional, and the condition is what got hit on the tower. So a tower can be hit, and maybe only one service might lose a piece of that capability. So if you go back and look at the maps, if Metacomet Tower gets hit, you know, the fire department was the repeater, that the antenna that got nailed, we would lose ability and we would lose part of our coverage in the town until such time as that repeater. But you don't lose all of it. They've envisioned backups and overlap in the system. Now, mind you, there are still some single point failures, but those single point failures are highly reliable. They're putting a lot of extra protection around them. The cost to dual redundancy, everything, it just skyrockets. And so Marcus has taken a position of reasonableness. Look, we'll protect these things. Yeah, those things that really need to be protected, and not so much here because they don't fail. So they've taken that. But it really depends. It depends on which tower, depends on what component, but the whole system does not go down. Pieces of it go down. And then it's a matter of, we have a requirement that Marcus have parts within range, which their office does. And then there's a response time requirement for them to be on site. Mind you, they'll know probably that the tower was hit before we will, because they'll also monitor on a regular basis. We did discuss this at length during the full day review. You know, well, we'll give you the monitor that we see. You see all the error messages and everything that pops up in dispatch. No, just give dispatch, green, everything's working, red, it's not. And if red, it's not, what's the phone number you're calling, which is Marcus, come fix. So the red light goes to green light. That's all the dispatcher needs to know. Okay. That's all built into the system, and the monitoring is all part of that. So we could, what we'd have to do is take the system diagram and say, okay, well, what if that went down? And then we could start talking about it. But we don't believe there's any one point that the whole system goes down. Parts of it might go down, and that's the whole idea of the tower locations talking to each other. They could see each other. So if multiple towers can see each other, oh, I can't see that one, I can talk to this one, he's alive. Yep. And then they can keep going and keep that site going.
And then just a clarification on the state police. Are the state police like in East Heartland or East Granby State Police? They have state police coverage, I believe.
Yeah, they're using the state system.
Are you? I was a little confused on the compatibility of being able to talk to the state through this system. Or?
So the answer is maybe. So as a rule, the state police do not allow non-state police units on their system. Okay. Right, as a rule. Our equipment would be compatible if and so there was a situation that we needed to, but mind you, that would be a reprogramming on the fly, et cetera. Typically what'll happen if they want you there, they'll hand you one of their radios and you go work on it. If the state were to come here, right, they're gonna talk to their dispatch center. Their radios could be made to be talk on our system. They have that ability as well. So it's just a matter of if that's programming equipment that they hold, et cetera. Mind you, the cost goes up because there's different frequency bands. And basically there's three: VHF, UHF, 800. The state system operates at 800. Every time you cross bands, the portable cost goes up at least $1,000. Because now you get, today, in the old days, you used to have a VHF radio, a UHF radio, and an 800 radio. Now in this technology, they mash it all into one radio, but the cost is still goes up about the same. So you get a convenience of holding one radio, but the cost goes up. Our radios could be upgraded to add it, but as a rule, we don't. The state police, the interfacing is usually directly through dispatch to their dispatch, and then when the PD units get on site with the state units, they talk to each other face to face.
Okay, and then once it's, assuming it gets voted in and it goes through and the upgrades, the obsolescence, I don't know what I heard on that, so I think somebody asked it already. Once this is done, are we talking 30 years before this has to be looked at again?
No, so once this is in, the equipment is basically a 10 to 15 year design life. So what we'll have to do after we get it up and running is we're going to have to start looking out 12 years and say, okay, how do we fund upgrades and replacements? Now, mind you, portables, they get beat up.
Oh, sure.
So they're going to, if it's not covered under warranty, somebody dropped it, ran a truck over it, or whatever, it's going to be onto the services to replace what they break and keep it up and running.
But the infrastructure?
The infrastructure should be there, and then it'll be a matter of, okay, looking at the components, what pieces should be upgraded. We can now have an upgrade plan, because now we have a system provider that understands the whole system. We have nobody in Granby, or the town, or any of the services that understands these systems well enough to be, if you would, a system manager. We're hiring markets to do that. They will then help us come up with an obsolescence plan, and then start looking at funding 2, 3, 4, 5 years out so we can plan properly.
So I guess what I'm getting at is the upgrade's done, it needs to be done, hopefully it gets voted through. But to the taxpayers, you're making a big investment now to upgrade it. However, you're not looking 10 years down the road for another $4.6 million or $5 million.
No, it won't be.
I think that's important. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, it won't be that.
We're always going to have improvements. We're always going to need upgrades. But we're not talking about another $5 million.
No, we're not. No,
because the industry is driving like iPhones. It's constantly forcing you to buy a new phone.
Exactly.
Okay, I think that's important to get to the public.
Yeah. Had we been doing that right along, we wouldn't be here talking about the 4.6 number. I'm going to keep saying 4.6, by the way.
I think it should go higher, 9%.
Had we been doing upgrades right along, we wouldn't be here now. Once we get this up and bring it up to the latest, and when we say state of the art, I mean, this is equipment that's in operational today at multiple areas. This isn't black magic new technology. This is stuff that's tried and true, so they know how it works, they know how it lasts. Once we're here, then we can start planning for the planned obsolescence, upgrades and adjustments going forward, and those numbers will be less. I have no idea what they will be, but it will not be my only system.
I think that's important.
Yep.
To get across the public.
Yep.
And there's 2 quick questions on the compatibility, talking to Canton or East Granby, or that coverage, is it improving that coverage?
Yes.
Okay, it's an enhancement.
Yeah, so the PD today, their portals can talk to a couple of the towns, but they can't talk to them. For example, they can't talk to Simsbury.
That's what I understand.
Because Simsbury went to a new system, and our system isn't compatible. Our new system will be.
I think that's another good.
I'll take my favorite one, the fire department. I can't talk to anybody on my standard radio system. I had to go buy an extra radio in every truck and buy extra portables for every officer. So an officer now carries 2 portables, ours and the radio that talks to everybody else.
Right.
With this new system, ours becomes the one that's compatible with everybody else. So it makes it a little easier, and you just throw a switch.
Okay.
And the state is a complex thing. Simsbury right now, even though they went with a state compatible system like we did, their portables, the state doesn't want to let them use their portables on their system. So it's in committee right now, so it's very hard to get something going on that. That's why I said the best thing we can do, and the important thing to do, is like what you're getting at, is our foundation is there.
Right, the infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think if they were ever gonna go to a statewide system, they're definitely gonna, the state's have to, they're gonna have to fund some of it to get us all there, because there's all these little intricate pieces to, complexity of multiple radio systems throughout the 169 towns. I'm sure there's more than that in radio systems.
Yeah. Okay, and the only reason I came up with the 9% is it's between 10 and 8.
You're quick.
And you're,
but 10's easier in math, though. It's easier.
Well, people like 9. And last question is, this is just in general, because I really don't know. Do we have an emergency disaster team in town to organize, gosh forbid, there's a major disaster and communications go down, and do we have something like that?
We have an emergency management director.
Well, what we have is emergency operations plan. So the town has a requirement. So we have an EOP that covers and for a major incidents in all the towns, and it includes a communication plan, resources. CERT team covers if we have to do shelters, right? So the senior center or the middle school cover, and that's how we did the generators for those back in the day. So the emergency management director coordinates all of the services. So if we open the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, which is the conference room next to the PD, bring that up, all the services come in, that's where we coordinate our response.
How does the messaging get out to the community and all of a sudden things go dark?
So we had a plan at one point, and I'll have to talk to CJ about the latest, but to use the Everbridge tool, which would allow us to do not only cell phone, but landline, et cetera, communication and get that out. We have also the social media accounts. Most of the services have a social media account that we've been sharing and using to blast out messages, like this meeting, for example. We shared it out there. So there are a couple ways of doing that. Everbridge needs some work. We haven't used that in a bit. We gotta resurrect that one. I think it's something CJ's looking at.
Like when you use reverse 911, and that's what you said, Everbridge.
That's the other one.
But Master, if Granby has a catastrophe, we have a multitude of mutual aid agreements with all towns seamlessly. The police department has a blue plan.
Red
Chief
plan.
has mutual plans with fire departments, so we're gonna be covered there. If we're all in it together in Connecticut, just raise your right hand, I want to deputize you.
You can get in touch with me.
We're going to put the Kurt signal up in the sky.
Yeah, no, but
just give me a badge now.
Well, and that's actually the EOP considers that, in that we need to be operational on our own for somewhere between 7 to 14 days. That's a concept that we strive for in all of our operations. So, for example, the reserves of propane and fuel and everything else, 7 to 14 days. Right, so that's something that goes in that. The perfect example where we did it was 2011, right? We had, most of the town was out at least 8 days, and then some people we get back for almost 15. Right? We were on our own the first 5 or 6 days. We weren't getting, because nobody could get here. We were on our own, and we did a hell of a job. Right? The services pulled together, the public pulled together, we helped, and we didn't, mind you, we didn't have the generators and the sites we have today.
Right.
We didn't have the middle school, we didn't have the generator at the senior center. We were all kind of fetching. The whole time we operated, the communication system was a 5,000 watt portable generator with a couple extension cords running through a door. Kirk and I are running back and forth every 3 or 4 hours, either his guys or my guys putting fuel in it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? Now, mind you, the equipment that's in there that we powered is still there. That's what we're using today, and that's why we need this.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for the time to ask the questions, and great job. And I think the public probably needs to hear at some point what the disaster, or I just don't know, disaster person, what the plan would be and how it might be organized to get there.
Yeah, we can ask CJ
if there's something bigger going on in town.
Good place to put that.
CJ's here for 10 hours a week, so he's good.
Yeah. No, it's just it's something to think about. It's, everyone's busy.
I'll make sure he gets on the social media.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Anybody else? Any other questions just on the presentation? So if we can go back to what Mike Walsh was saying about the funds and how to create it and stuff, I think that for at least me, validated where we started, brought us full circle to where we started talking tonight, why it makes sense to get this radio communication, we'll talk about the number in a second, for this year, keep the rest of our capital funding flat with everything else out, so that we can start to figure out that program, putting all the wise people together to come up with a program on how to fund everything else when we know that we can add the schools projects to it. Did I say that right?
Yes.
So we'll vote Monday to do that, but do we have a consensus on that point, which is the first year focus on radio communications and move everything else out?
Yes.
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 Do you two have enough information to be able to know what to take out?
Yeah, the parking lot accounts.
There's a few other things. The chief's got some stuff in the first year that will be a little unusual.
Very small.
Oh, we taking chief stuff out too?
Yeah, so the idea would be...
Sorry, Chief. Welcome to being
Welcome to Granby.
So we can go through line by line if we need to, but let me
Yeah, I
try.
think so. Because his is like 2 cruiser,
No, not the cruisers. So
the shield and the firearms. Those are in, right? So I need more.
maybe it's not as simple as I was making it out to be.
I was only thinking about like the facility line, which is on your
Okay.
E-147.
Right, so before we get there, let's try this. So we could get these folks out of here. If we went to 4.6, I did the quick math, that's a little more than 9%.
It's between 9 and 10.
Yeah. Do we have consensus to build in 4.6 for this system in the first year?
Yes.
Yes, for me.
Did you say yes?
Say yes.
I mean, yes.
Yes.
You have to say it. And I'm okay with that too. Okay, so we'll work from there. We're going to put 4.6 in on the communication system in the first year. You guys are welcome to stay and watch the rest of the sausage if you want making, and otherwise, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, before we go, since the April 1st meeting is, I think, technically your meeting, do you have any objection to the chief doing this same, maybe slightly pared down presentation to the public?
Yeah, I was thinking I got to start an hour ahead of time.
Depends on the questions.
It's a good present, well, they need to hear
Well, and mind you, there'll be a,
and see, they need to hear and see what,
so what I'll do is I'll update my deck here, the 4.6, clean that up so that it'll be clear and put that out. Make here to the town, and the town can publish that into their website to put out, as shared information. I'll update the social media and drummer articles to reflect the updated numbers and some of the clarity about some of the questions that were asked here. I'll add those in, make them better. The social media will go out, the fire department, the ambulance will issue those, everybody else can write on that, on social media. Smaller, shorter items, but then the drummer will have more detail in it as well. And then if you want me to present on the first, I would be happy, this or something like it, if you want me to change from the scope, because it'll...
no, you'll need to talk to
Okay.
So as we leave here tonight, let's plan on you using the same slides. Maybe go through them a little quicker, but
Okay.
Well,
then I would ask you, Chief,
and
please come on the first and make sure that if you can.
I'll see you.
Okay. You're getting paid to be there, so you're coming.
on the 25th, we'll need you too for when you folks present to us.
Okay.
My people need to hear it, like,
25th of March,
and see what.
Board of Finance meeting, okay?
Yep.
Give me a time and place and I'll be there. No argument.
Senior Center, we start at 7. So.
I'll be there at 6:55.
It is at the senior center.
Is it? The graphic I put out says high school.
No, we're talking about the 25th.
March 25th.
Yeah,
Board of Finance meeting.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, okay. All right, we're good there.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your help and support.
All right, thank you all. I would not normally pay attention to my phone. It looked like Jenny texted me. Is she trying to speak?
Yeah, you too.
Okay. All right. So let's try this for you. Let's go to page 135 in the new book that Kimmy passed out. And let's start just at the top there, looking at the 24-25 column. So the million would be keeping that flat. Everybody's okay with leaving that in? Okay. Same thing with culverts, bridges, and drainage. Everybody's okay with leaving that in and keeping it flat? Okay. Okay, the next one is capital equipment. What's the difference between these two numbers, Kimmy? Where would we find that detail?
The detail is on page 147, give you a detail. So under the capital equipment, it say the police vehicle for 130,000.
Oh, I see. That's why you were asking me this question. So,
Yes.
So really, the only new thing here is the ballistic shields and the firearms.
Yep.
Notwithstanding, we said we wanted nothing new in here. I think the chief has pitched me, at least, that he'd like to do at least the firearm purchase, because he's got to buy them all at once, and it affects, he doesn't commit to buying them, it affects what ammunition he buys, right?
Yes.
So he has to make a decision this year whether to buy ammunition for the current firearms or to switch to a new system.
This is to replace the current firearms?
Yes. Chief, will you come to the table? Will you remind us what the ballistic shields are?
Yeah,
The ones they carry?
Yeah, so being first responder, active shooter for the schools, and we have 2 threat levels. You have rifle threat level, and you have pistol threat level. So we did purchase 3 this year for 3 of the cruisers, so we have 3 outstanding. We do have some older ones that are lower threat level, but we do have, so if we needed to push that a year, we could probably do that. The firearms are more, they're about 12 years old now. The holsters are 12 years old. The weapon system, it's actually with our trade-in and all that. We worked the numbers. It's a low number. It's like 19,000. But it's better to do it now than to wait later when it's our value of our weapon is useless and it's not worth more. And then that figure could probably more than double. But it's the up-to-date weapon system that the FBI suggests us to use. It's a 9mm instead of a 40mm. It has a new sighting system, so it's a much safer operation of the weapon. State of the art. I believe Simsbury just went to it as well, maybe about 6 months ago.
And remind me, what is the technology and equipment?
No, that's for the town technology and equipment. That number actually go down from 40,000 because we're using the ARPA funds to do the first initial.
Okay. So let's just walk through them one at a time. What do you guys want to do with the 24,000 and the 19,000?
I think I would go with what the chief had, at least in my opinion, go with what the chief suggested, hold off on the shields for a year. But if he's saying you're getting more value for your current equipment, your current firearms as a trade-in, then you probably should do that now. And I like the idea of the newer equipment being safer.
So Fred's suggestion is keep 19 in and take 24 out into the second year. Any objections?
I'm actually fine with doing both. I mean, if anything happens, I'd rather have a officer protected.
Mark?
I would have gone with Fred's suggestion on the switch in and out.
Can I add a point, maybe it will influence decisions? So the police contractor fund is funding those two, the shield and the firearm, and one of the cruiser. So for this budget, the police contracting fund, the pirate duty fund, is funding $108,000, which is $24,000 for the shield, and then the $19,000 for the firearm, and one cruiser at $65,000. So the actual funding from the general fund is only one cruiser, $65,000.
So we really don't need to,
Well, no, it's again, it's all just when do you want to make the decisions evaluate, right? So, but let me just ask you, so if we do it that way, if you know the exact number, give it to us. If not, so that private duty fund is still pretty healthy, right?
It's pretty healthy, it's around 300 range.
Okay.
I can give
Yeah,
you
and
the number.
we're looking at it now to bring that figure up, just because of the market value. I think we're on the lower end, so I want to bring it up at least into the mid-market.
It's 384 as of June 30, 2023.
All right. So given the chief's promise, he's going to try to raise those rates, and then we still have a pretty healthy balance. I'm with Kelly. I think we ought to just do it all at once.
Yeah, I agree.
All right.
that's fine. I didn't realize there was alternative funding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, because he's.
Okay.
That's a very pleasant way to say, because Mark doesn't know what he's talking about. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Good, it came out the lunch a little more.
All right. So that line's, then we're good there, right?
Yeah.
So that line's not going to change. The capital equipment line is not going to change. All right. And the education related is not going to change it. In fact, I think they actually voted to reduce that last night. Is that right?
They
I don't know.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter. We'll get them flat. So now public facilities and maintenance is where we have to make
Yes.
the big decisions. And what page is that on?
That is on page.
Still AE 147, right?
Actually, it's starting with page 156.
All right, come up here, Kurt. 156.
Like the hot seat next to me. Okay.
156. First item up there, Kirk, is overhead passage doors, $60,000.
Spread out. We have a lot of problems with our doors. Not only do they not hold heat, but we have some of the bottoms that have deteriorated due to salt environment.
So I can't tell if in this chart, 60,000 is the total.
This is the total. Sorry
Spread.
about the
columns are off.
columns, yes.
So 6,000 this year for overhead doors. Is all this stuff from general fund or here?
They're all general funds, so the overhead is general fund. So if you look at the funding source,
Oh, I
GF
see.
stand for general
I
fund.
got it.
This should be 6,000?
Yes, the column reading 2026 should be 2025.
Yeah, everything's
Okay.
just off.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
one left to it should be total instead of 2025.
Yeah, this is total.
All right. Let's go through it line by line.
Yep,
Our
sure.
goal is to move as much of this out as we can,
So
1 year. Which doesn't necessarily mean actually that you gotta wait a year to fund it, it just means we're not gonna fund it for the general fund.
Do you want me to speak on it, Mark? Or how do you want to go about this?
I want you to tell me what you absolutely will slam your fist down on the table right now that you gotta have in the first year.
Well, the overhead doors, we need to keep them in to some extent, whether it's 6,000 a year or 12,000 or all 60. We're losing efficiency big time. It's, if you don't mind, windows, yes, we need to replace them
Let's
sometime.
stop. I got it. 'Cause I
Right
just
here.
caught myself doing what you're doing.
Sorry, we're just dealing with these.
We're just in
Kimmy.
2020.
Yes.
Just
Oh.
10 grand's the next one at the
Okay,
fuel pump
sorry,
station.
my apologies. We can prolong the concrete around the pump station. We've been filling it in with blacktop, it's deteriorating, and we can prolong that a little bit if you want.
So that's 10 grand that can go. over.
Yeah, and I can't speak to the center master plan.
You can move it.
You can move the 75.
And
I'm
then,
gonna highly recommend we fund it somewhere, but we don't have to fund it out of the general fund.
and then if we scroll down to the Windows security system, some part of that very little part of that will be included in the radio, but they make 3M products that will give some resistance to Windows. Not only is the EOC there, but you have an environment that could use a little bit more protection.
So what if we move that out from here, but you spend some of that 9% we just gave you doing the window?
Nice try.
Wasn't a
This,
question.
there's value in the package.
Okay, oh, I see. So, well, let's stop there, because we're,
And really in that, I'm sorry, there was really only one window that was included in that, so it's not much.
okay, so let's go back to the top, so we're all of this. So overhead doors, y'all okay with leaving
One in.
one in? Okay. Concrete, we're gonna move out. Master plan, we're gonna move out. Now we're at the window security. What do y'all wanna do?
That sounds like something we should do.
Okay, and 7 grand's the number?
That was the latest number, and they said they would hold the price. If I have to eliminate one window, I will.
Okay, we'll leave that one in. EV charging station, I think we should move out, only because it's just an indication we won't use general fund for it. Doesn't mean we won't do it, but this is probably one we would find other funds to do. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
By the way, I heard that number could be that you guys.
If I move it here,
Yeah, that number
I have
could be
another
substantial.
proposal that just came in.
Okay,
After.
that's another reason to move it out, I think. Okay,
Okay, so North Barn Pavilion, equipment replacement. I think we should do the best we can to keep this in here.
This one is funded by the Park and Rec PR.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I'm in agreement that my pitch is to leave it in. First of all, I think when I talked to Jamie, she said she doesn't need to do all of it, but to leave it in and they'll do it out of the Park and Rec fund. So it's not, it wouldn't be, there are certain things that she thinks we should prioritize because they're revenue producers. They will help her sell more space. So I would say leave it in.
Okay, now we're down to, sorry.
Holcomb Farm siding,
Yeah, the siding has become a real issue. It's a barn. And so after wood dries out, expands, so on and so forth, you're getting space. And I can take you to a couple locations where you can see outside when it's lit. When the sun lights out, you can see right through the walls. And even though you can't see through the bottom walls because they're sheetrock, that doesn't mean they don't exist. So we have had driving rain issues where it's gotten into the building and caused us some problems.
so let me, Mike, this was Mike Walsh, this is the question I was trying to ask you this morning. I think this should be done. I'm not sure how firm the number is, but we have the source of the stewardship fund that we built on when we did the conservation easement. If we move it in this plan out a year, does it preclude us from doing it this year, but using that special fund?
No. So the only thing, this capital improvement plan should be approved by the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, however that works. And the only reason you need that is for LoSiP money. You have to show that it's an approved part of a multi-year plan. Everything else you can revisit singularly. If you take it out and move it, and then we do the study or the update on the Board of Ed, because that's where my concerns are. With the roof issue that they have, with the middle school boiler issue that they have, I really want to get a similar list from the board to be able to say, are these really our priorities? So with respect to this, you could leave it in and just fund it later, or you can say move it into the second year to be consistent, and then we can come back at an appropriate time when we revisit it and say, let's add this one back in, move it from the second year back to the first, here's the funding source. So you could leave it and do it now, or we can revisit it. Your call.
So my suggestion is we just move it to the second year, because if we're going to fund it and come out of that fund, we'd have, just as Mike said. Any objections?
No.
No.
Okay, Salmon Brook Park Playground equipment. This one I think we should move to the second year, but I don't think we should make this line 0. Mike, again, you can correct me if I went to a Park and Rec Board meeting on Tuesday. So we think there are some preliminary phase 1 things we could do this year where we don't have to replace the whole thing. To keep it safe, keep kids on it while we figure out a plan to replace it. Best of my knowledge, no number has been put to that. But having what I just said, again, we could do that out of the Park and Rec Fund, so maybe we move this whole thing into the second.
So the only thing I would ask is I don't have a thorough understanding of what is the large playground, and I understand what a basketball court is, and I have a pretty good feel what that will cost to renovate. So of the two, what's the rough split between the playground and the basketball court? You know, the basketball court's normally about $100,000 with a mill and repave, and if you're going to do the basketball arms, and if there's any seating.
I wish I knew, because I'm trying to think of the same. If you're saying around 100,000, then I would say that's pretty close. I really don't know. But the court is in distress. Did you see a breakdown? No.
Well, Christine submitted a breakdown. I believe the basketball, she put it around 240.
Were they going to put pickleball courts there too?
Yeah,
So you're going to like just 2 basketball courts and make the other half pickleball. Those numbers get up there too.
That feels too high.
The pickle was for the tennis.
Tennis courts?
I think we have, yes,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. And the tennis court is not bad. The basketball court does
Sandy,
need
you want
to
to
be.
sit up at the table?
I don't know the number, but I would lean more toward what Mike is saying. That one, I would suggest do sooner than later. In the playground, you have your answer.
And then what is the playground? That, you know, if we used 100,000, that's still 588 on a playground. Now, I know the children's playgrounds are 125, 175 because of COVID. So I don't have a concept of what 588,000 is. That's a lot of
Those are two different
playground.
questions. I can tell you what the playground is. Why it costs $578,000 to replace, I do not know. In Salmon Brook Park, there's a couple of areas, playground equipment, jungle gyms, and that.
Yeah.
This is the big one. It's pretty big. It's for bigger kids, lots of climbing, lots of swings, all that kind of stuff. So again, because we don't have a great feel for the number, and if I understood your answer before, what I think we should move is everything out of here.
Agreed.
Except 10 grand to get the
Yeah.
playground where it's safe for kids. If you go out there now, there's benches that are falling apart that you gotta either remove or fix, so.
There were some, at that board meeting, they did talk about some serious safety concerns for the broken benches, and so that they at least need to have some funding for repairs to at least stabilize the current playground.
Yeah. So what if we just reduce that to 10,000? I just totally made that number up. And again, it is almost likely gonna come from the Park and Rec Fund anyway, to make those repairs.
Are there safety issues with the basketball court that we should be addressing?
If you ask me who's played on it, the answer is yes, I would shut that court down, right? you need to look at it. The cracks are you can trip and run over them, and yeah, it ain't good. So, that's different though, again, to me, because that number is bigger, to fix that, it seems like let's put something in for the playground, but stay right on top of the basketball numbers, because we either need to need to shut it down, or we need to replace it pretty quickly.
And I don't think we're delaying it a year in terms of this particular item. We're simply saying we don't have enough information here to make an intelligent choice, but let's put 10,000 in, so if Public Works has to get in there and tear out some benches and so on and so forth, we can do that. Meanwhile, I'll add it to the list. We'll get out there with Sandy, and we'll drill down to what does the basketball court cost, what does the playground cost, and then, again, I'm just picking a random date, June 30th, we're back in front of you saying, it's okay to amend this capital improvement plan. We have better numbers now. Here's the number, here's the plan, and here's the proper breakdown between years. So it's really just let us get started, let us assess, let us come back with a better number later in the year.
And let's say we did that now in Michigan, testing my knowledge. So you're going to amend it, put 100,000 and a couple projects back in the first year. That process we can do because it's below the threshold of what the Board of Selectmen can make in terms of the percentage. We would approve it and the Board of Finance would approve it. Is that the process?
Well, in this case, unless I'm misunderstanding, your contributions coming out of the general fund go into the capital improvement fund. You're simply going to increase different funds, maybe not general fund. In this particular case, you're not going to touch your general fund budget. You're simply going to say, Mike, Kimmy, do this project out of the Parks and Recreation Fund. So I don't think you'll be revisiting the general fund in this case. Kimmy, is that about, you feel about right?
Yeah, if it's funded by the Park and Rec Fund, we usually just do a approval from you and the Board of Finance for
Okay.
additional appropriation.
Yeah, so there's no amendment of the budget?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so is everybody comfortable with taking that number, making it 10,000, and just so we don't have to do the math, but the whole remaining 688.9 could just move into the second year? Everybody's okay with that?
Yes.
So now on E-158, the only other thing we had in the first year was the drainage improvements. I'm biased, but I say that goes into the second year.
That's drainage improvement throughout the town or at one location?
No, it's a couple of, maybe no more than one specific site.
Okay.
Where are we going?
We are on page 1, E-158. Mike Walsh, you okay with moving that in the second year based on our conversations?
That one I'd like to leave in,
Okay.
just in case. That one will come to a head sooner rather than later.
Y'all have to trust that we know what we're talking about to leave it in for now.
Yeah,
Okay, all right,
I'm okay with leaving it in.
all right. Well, there we go. Now we're all the way back to page E-135. So we've made some changes to that number. That's going to be drastically reduced.
Mark,
Yep.
you can go back to 158,
Yes, sir.
the bottom of the page. This money sitting here, the sidewalks and various alignments, is there something real or it's?
I was just going to go back to that. So that's the,
Okay.
that's the 25 number, right?
Yeah.
What's in that? What's in that $25,000? Various alignments and
You're back on
sidewalks.
that. Yeah, we have issues not only throughout the town, Holcomb Farm, Cosset Library, and several other areas that we need to work on repairing.
So two of those I know for sure are real projects outside of Cosset Library. The sidewalk that leads up to it is
Hazardous beyond.
It is hazardous, and There's a couple places in Holcomb Farm where people have complained they're tripping and falling that need to be repaired.
Okay.
So,
If it's just placeholder stuff, I'm gonna get rid of it, but if it's...
Nope.
If it's real, okay. Gotcha.
all right, now do you guys have everything?
What's
you
various
need?
alignments?
What?
What's various alignments mean?
Aligning the...
Oh, the sidewalks?
It's part of the category, yeah, just straightening, curving, and so on.
Got it.
You're not supposed to talk.
I would have just put it all on the
Yeah, I know,
sidewalks. I'd break it out.
Some bills, some of this straight.
So now having done that, you have enough information to
Yep.
update the budget book.
Yep.
All right, anybody have anything else they want to do on capital? If not, then I'd ask one more thing of you and Kim before Monday, is if there's anything else that you see or can find that we can, in the operating, going back to the operating budget, like we might have been able to lock in some fuel and do some savings there. Let's build those into what we vote on Monday. And if there's anything else you're comfortable that, I don't know if there is, because we went through an awful lot of it to get to this point, but if there's anything else, I promised the Board of Finance Chair we would do it if you're comfortable doing it and not putting us at risk.
Understood. In terms of the process, and this is more of a Kimmy question, I have on my desk something that you need to fill in related to the budget motion for Monday. Do you have, now that the boards have made changes into the capital, do you feel comfortable that we have the ability to complete that memo? Or will it be delayed until we look at more savings, or will the savings be handled Monday night if we find them?
Well, tomorrow, I'm gonna have to update all this number to put it in the agenda memo with all the potential saving from the fuel, gasoline, worker comps, liability. Those rates just came in. We built in 5% and for liability and 5% for worker comps. The worker comps come down to 2.5% increase, and the liability stayed with around 4.8% increase. So it's about a few $1,000s saving over there.
So if I'm hearing Kimmy right, what Mark
have to
just
do-
said, take till Monday, we're gonna do tomorrow, because we gotta put it in the memo as a placeholder, so that when the Board of Selectmen vote to send the budget to the Board of Finance, we've already incorporated those changes.
Yes.
So are you comfortable, Mark, that that's gonna happen tomorrow?
Yeah, it's only,
Or do you want us to separate it into two tasks? I think it makes it more cumbersome Monday if the memo's changing.
well, I would change it tomorrow
Right.
for the Board of Selectmen agenda.
My advisor says change it tomorrow, so you'll...
That's why
I'm happy you accepted your advisor's advisor. I was hoping for that too, but
Yes, ideally, we get Kimmy home, she can eat and sleep and come back tomorrow morning and make the changes she needs so that, that the motion we make on Monday is identical to what the backup says that has to go out to.
Perfect.
That's the goal, yes, sir.
so we'll be done tomorrow.
Yes.
So my last question would be, beside the fuel, gasoline, the one that I just mentioned, worker comps and liability, any more other cuts?
It's a good question.
We'll give it a once-over together, but I think you have
I
identified.
think you can go another year without a badge.
Another uniform?
Too late, I found some money, $11.
It says Lions Club.
I don't remember our discussions directing you to do that.
Yeah.
So anything you find on your own, I don't think you'll find much objection from
Okay.
us.
Very good.
As long as you look us in the eye and say, you're not gonna put us in an over budget condition, you feel safe, it's locked in, you can change the number, I think that's what we want.
Will do.
Okay.
Okay? Any other business? Catherine, can you just, is there anybody left on Zoom, or is everybody surrendered? Okay, so there we are. Public session, is anybody, there's nobody left in the room? Lori or Michael, do you have anything that you want to say before we adjourn?
I will offer one thing. Just to follow up on reached out to the Secretary of State's office, the $25 million for the new optical machines. They need 3,000 machines. They're currently weighing which vendor to select. They're allowing the register of voters across towns to go in and test the various machines to see what they want. So an order for 3,000 machines is probably a couple of months away at best. I just don't see it happening for November. It's going to add confusion, but they're in the selection process right now.
Thank you for multitasking. All right. Anybody else? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good work, everybody. Thank you.